Chapter 1367. No one knew that Long Tien and Tong Zun had obtained the origin energy, including Longao. In the ancient forbidden grounds, Longao followed Xiling's instructions and continued to search for opportunities. However, every time, his luck was just a little bit worse, and he missed out on the opportunity. He did not give up. Longao knew that there were still 9 months before the ancient battlefield reopened. There was more than enough time. During this period, Longao kept encountering disciples from the 10 sects. Under such circumstances, he did not show any mercy. It could be said that he killed everyone he saw. Being merciful to one's enemies was the greatest cruelty to oneself. Among the 10 sects, the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family had a grudge against him. If these people left, they would definitely become the sect's greatest enemy in the future. That was exactly why. In order to eliminate the root of the problem and prevent future troubles, Longao did not let any of his enemies go. The Long family's longbow was successfully killed. As for the Martial Artists Alliance, he could not let Yi Fei go. Longao continued to search for opportunities while killing the disciples from the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. As for Yi Fei, Longao was well aware of his strength and the gap between them. If he fought Yi Fei head-on, he would only be asking for trouble. Revenge was a dish best served cold. 9 months passed in the blink of an eye. A year's time was almost the time it took to eat a meal for those who entered the ancient battlefield. When the ancient battlefield reopened, Longao and the rest left successfully. There were more than 10,000 people who had entered the primordial battlefield previously, but after a year, less than 110,000 of them had made it out alive. That's right. Among the 10,000 people, other than Longao and Yi Fei, none of them made it out alive. What was going on? No one knew about this. 10 exits. None of the 10 sects would tell the public that all of their people who entered the ancient battlefield had been wiped out. This kind of thing was very embarrassing. It was because of this reason that the 10-directional cauldron thought that they were unlucky. The 1,000 people who entered all died in the primordial battlefield. At this point, the primordial battlefield became a great secret. Long Tien and Tong Zun had also left the primordial battlefield. As for the tens of thousands of people, it was because the 2 of them had killed them. Not a single one was left. The reason why the 2 of them did this was very simple. It was to silence them. The fact that the 2 of them had entered the primordial battlefield could not be leaked. Otherwise, the 2 of them would be in endless trouble. The 2 of them didn't kill Yi Fei because of Tong Zun. Otherwise, Long Tien wouldn't have let Yi Fei go. Even so, as a precaution, the 2 of them chose to brainwash Yi Fei. In other words, from now on, Yi Fei would know nothing about entering the ancient battlefield and would not reveal anything about it. Brainwashing would be a huge hindrance to Yi Fei's future cultivation. However, the 2 of them couldn't care less about that. In order to keep this secret, not killing Yi Fei was already very good of them. Sword Sect. Seeing that Longao had successfully come out of the primordial battlefield, Murong and Tong Zun were overjoyed. However, their faces turned extremely gloomy in the next moment. There were thousands of people in the Sword Sect and not a single one of them had come out alive. What exactly had happened? But one had to know. The thousands of people who had entered the primordial battlefield this time were the most outstanding and talented people in the Sword Sect. The Sword Sect couldn't afford to lose even 1/10 of them, let alone all of them. Murong couldn't wait and asked anxiously, Longao, what exactly happened? Where are the people in the Sword Sect? Why didn't a single one of them come out? 2 hours. The primordial battlefield would only open for 2 hours. According to the previous situation, out of 10 people in the Sword Sect, 3 or 4 of them would come out. But now, Longao obviously didn't know what had happened. Although the primordial forbidden ground was full of danger, he wouldn't believe that no one had come out alive. Could it be because of Tong Zun and Long Tien? Longao had a guess. Long Tien and Tong Zun had killed everyone in order to keep this a secret. After all, with their strength, it was easy for them to kill more than 5,000 people. Was it really the 2 of them? Longao, what exactly happened? Seeing that Longao was silent, Murong Guenar and Tongzun were even more certain that Longao knew what had happened. Senior Tongzun, Murong Master, I don't know why the people in the sword sect didn't come out. Subsequently, Longao roughly recounted the matter of him and his group entering the ancient forbidden grounds. Long Tian and Tongzun also entered the primordial forbidden ground. As for whether it was them, I don't know. Longao's words were vague, but Murong Guenar and Tongzun weren't fools. Of course, they understood what Longao meant. Could it really be Long Tian and Tongzun? Hearing Longao's words, both Murong Guenar and Tongzun were shocked. This was because everyone knew that Nirvana realm martial artists couldn't enter the primordial forbidden ground. Otherwise, no Nirvana realm martial artist would have entered the primordial battlefield after it had opened so many times. In that case, the two of them couldn't figure out how Tongzun and Long Tian did it. Longao, do you know how Long Tian and Tongzun did it? Longao knew what Tongzun meant. After thinking about it, he said, according to my guess, the two of them must have forcefully suppressed their strength to enter the primordial forbidden ground. As for why, I believe you know better than me. I don't know if the two of them have obtained the primordial forbidden ground. However, the two of them must have killed everyone to silence them. Old ancestor, why don't we join forces with the other sects to suppress the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family? We can ask Long Tian and Tongzun why they did it. Murong Guenar was furious. It was fine that the two of them entered the primordial battlefield, but why did they have to silence them? Thousands of people were the foundation of the sword sect. If one of them died, there would be one less person left. Murong Guenar's heart was filled with endless anger. He wanted to immediately attack the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family and tear Long Tian and Tongzun into pieces. However, Tongzun shook his head and said with a serious face, "This is a little troublesome. Long Tian and Tongzun will definitely not admit it. Before we have concrete evidence, the other sects will definitely not join forces with us." Tongzun also had his own concerns. If it was someone else who said it, perhaps some people would believe it. However, Longao was the only one who didn't. Everyone knew that Longao had a grudge against the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. Everyone would think that Longao did it on purpose to kill with a borrowed knife. Chapter 1368. If Longao was the only one who said that, it would be useless. Until now. Jian Tian and Murong Guenar sighed. The two of them did not know how Long Tian and Tongzun entered the primordial battlefield. Even though they knew that the two of them had suppressed their strength, knowing was one thing, and being able to do it was another. Suppressing one's strength. Countless people had thought of this method, but how many of them could do it? Why did Long Tian and Tongzun enter the primordial battlefield? Others might not know, but how could Murong Guenar and Jian Tian not know? They would never believe that the two of them were doing it for treasures, martial skills, and cultivation techniques. Both Long Tian and Tongzun had reached the peak of the Nirvana realm. They were only one step away from breaking through to the peak of the martial arts path. Murong Guan and Jian Tian were almost certain that the main reason why the two of them suppressed their strength and took the risk to enter the primordial battlefield was because they wanted to obtain the so-called origin source energy in the primordial battlefield. The thing that Nirvana realm martial artists wanted the most was the origin energy. But all the core energy of the martial heaven continent had been sealed by the heavenly Taos. It was practically impossible for them to obtain any of it. Even Murong Guenar and Jian Tian wanted to obtain the origin energy. If they could obtain the origin energy by entering the primordial battlefield, the two of them would definitely enter without hesitation. Temptation. That was the temptation of the origin energy. Murong Guenar and Jian Tian's faces were extremely gloomy. Losing over 1,000 disciples in an instant was undoubtedly the greatest blow to the sword sect. If they had known earlier, they would definitely have chosen to give up this opportunity. In the main hall of the sword sect. Longao, if what you said is true, it seems that not only the disciples of the sword sect, but all the disciples of the other sects, including the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family, have all died. Nodding his head. Although it was a little funny, Longao was almost certain that everyone in the 10-direction tripod had been killed by Long Tien and Tong Zun. Not a single one was left. Silencing them. I have a guess about the two of them, but I don't know if I should say it. Please speak. Murong Guenar and Zhen Tian were very curious. They did not know what Longao had guessed. The two of you, Long Tien and Tong Zun, aren't fools. They know that even if they kill everyone, as long as I leave the primordial battlefield alive, the news of them entering the primordial battlefield will still be leaked. Long Tien and Tong Zun nodded in agreement. Longao, even so, what can we do? Guessing. According to my guess, there is only one reason why the two of them killed everyone to silence the witnesses. That is, they obtained what they wanted. Origin energy? Murong Guenar and Zhen Tian looked at each other. They were not fools. Of course, they knew what Longao meant. Longao, we already know what you mean. I believe your guess. Zhen Tian's heart was heavy. He knew what it meant for Long Tien and Tong Zun to obtain the origin energy. Longao, you have just left the primordial battlefield. You should rest well. All right. Of course, Longao knew what Zhen Tian wanted to do. If his guess was right, Long Tien and Tong Zun would be able to break through to the peak of the martial Dao once they refined and merged with the origin energy. Once the two of them reached the peak of the martial Dao, there would be no 10-direction tripod in Tianwu continent. Instead, it would be the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. How could Zhen Tian and the rest resist the experts at the peak of the martial Dao? Just as Longao had guessed, Zhen Tian panicked when he heard that Long Tien and Tong Zun had successfully obtained the origin energy. He was very fearful. Old ancestor, what should we do now? Murong Guenar knew how serious the matter was. It was better to be safe than sorry. If Long Tien and Tong Zun really obtained the origin energy, the consequences would be unimaginable. Murong Guenar was almost certain that once Long Tien and Tong Zun's cultivation reached the peak of the martial Dao, the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family would definitely destroy the other 8 forces. Then, they would be able to rule the world. This is just Longao's guess. No one knows the truth. What did the old ancestor mean? Hearing the old ancestor's words, Murong Guenar was curious. Did the old ancestor not believe in Longao? You and I know the grudge between Longao and the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. We can't rule out the possibility that Longao wants to use us to deal with Long Tien and Tong Zun in order to frame the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. It made sense. Murong Guenar knew that the old ancestor's analysis was reasonable. After all, it was not impossible for Longao to frame the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family in order to deal with them. Moreover, it's also unknown whether Tong Zun and Long Tien have entered the primordial battlefield. In the end, Zhen Tian did not believe Longao at all. If it was anything else, Zhen Tian wouldn't have any doubts. After all, no Nirvana Realm warrior, including Long Tien and Tong Zun, had been able to enter the primordial battlefield every time it opened. If the two of them could suppress their strength and enter the primordial battlefield, why didn't they enter before? After all, the two of them had countless chances, but they chose to enter the primordial battlefield this time. Moreover, Longao also entered the primordial battlefield. Because of this, Zhen Tian only believed 1/10 of what Longao had said, including his guess. Otherwise, Zhen Tian would have gone to verify it a long time ago. He wouldn't have sat there obediently. Old ancestor, since we don't believe Longao, should we pretend that this did not happen? Zhen Tian snorted loudly and said in an extremely cold voice, "We have lost more than 1,000 disciples this time. If we don't get to the bottom of this matter, how can we face the sect?" As the sword sect master, Murong Guenar felt an unquenchable anger at the thought of the sect losing more than 1,000 disciples. If he knew who had killed more than 1,000 disciples, he believed that even if it was God, Murong Guenar, he would not let that person off. "I will make a trip down personally later. No matter what, I believe that there will be a result soon." No one knew whether Longao was telling the truth or not. Old ancestor, if this was really done by Longao, how should we deal with it? Kill. Zhen Tian said coldly without even thinking about it. In Zhen Tian's opinion, If Longao killed Jiyu Zun in order to frame the martial artists alliance and the Long family, then Longao would no longer be his friend, but his enemy. There was only one way to deal with an enemy, and that was to kill. Chapter 1369. In the Sword Sect. It was a secluded courtyard with an elegant environment. In the courtyard, Murongyanga was pleasantly surprised to hear that Longao had returned safely. The two of them chatted for a few hours before Murongyanga stood up and left. How could Longao not know about Murongyanga's feelings? But could he accept it? Yu Yin, Bai Ling, and Aoshue already had 3 confidants. Longao did not want to cause any more trouble. From the beginning to the end, Longao had only treated Murongyanga as his biological sister. For his sister, Murongyanga, he was willing to risk his life, but not his feelings. The two of them were well aware of the outcome. Murongyanga was very sad. However, in order to not force Longao away, she could only bury her feelings. Brother Long, Sister Yanga seems to like you a lot. Silly girl. Longao smiled helplessly and said bitterly, when it comes to feelings, it's all about mutual consent. I have the 3 of you. Bai Ling, of course, did not want Longao to continue looking for confidants. She smiled and did not say anything. Brother Long, Jian Tian and Murongyanga don't seem to believe you. Longao nodded. Regarding Bai Ling's meaning, how could Longao not know? Even he would not believe it, let alone Jian Tian and Murongyanga. Putting aside whether the two of them had obtained the origin energy, no one would believe that the two of them had entered the primordial battlefield, including Jian Tian and Murongyanga. Everyone knew that the primordial battlefield had opened countless times over the years, but no Nirvana realm martial artist had ever entered. If Long Tian and Tong Zun could enter, why would they wait until now? Xiling and Bai Ling appeared at the same time. Longao, if I'm not wrong, not only will Jian Tian and Murongyanga not believe you, they might even think that you're trying to frame them. Regarding this point that Xiling said, Longao really had not thought about it before. Now that he thought about it, that was indeed the case. If he were in their shoes, he would also think the same. After all, he had a grudge with the Martial Artists Alliance and his Long family. It would be strange if Jian Tian and Murongyanga chose to believe him. Longao, you better be careful. You can never judge a book by its cover. If Long Tian and Tong Zun attack you, you'll be in big trouble. Longao's eyes gradually focused. Apart from himself, no one else knew that Long Tian and Tong Zun had entered the primordial battlefield. In other words, no one could prove that Long Tian and Tong Zun had entered the primordial battlefield. Xiling's words made Longao speculate. If someone else had said that, Jian Tian and the others might have believed him. However, Jian Tian, who had believed him, might not believe him. It seems like I'll have to leave the Sword Sect. It was better to be safe than sorry. If Jian Tian didn't believe him and he stayed in the Sword Sect, wouldn't he be in big trouble? Longao, if you choose to leave at this time, Jian Tian will think that there's something wrong with you. Longao seemed to be in a mess. Normally, he wouldn't be so impulsive. Longao, let's wait and see. If I'm not wrong, Jian Tian should have left the Sword Sect. I believe we'll know the result in less than 3 days. Longao nodded. He knew that he was a little impulsive this time. Just like what Xiling had said, if he chose to leave at this time, Jian Tian and Murongyanga would definitely think that he was trying to frame them. If that was really the case, wouldn't Long Tian and Tong Zun benefit from it? The primordial battlefield wasn't a secret to the Sky Martial continent. However, only the top 10 sects could enter the primordial battlefield. Although the outsiders weren't convinced, they didn't dare to say anything. After all, there were only 10 entrances to the primordial battlefield. They were from the Long family, Alchemy Guild, Martial Artists Alliance, WN Shou Sect, Heaven and Earth Sect, Five Elements Sect, Wanzhan School, Sword Sect, Purple Thunder Sect, and Black Heaven Sect. The other sects didn't have an 11th entrance. Even if others wanted to enter, they wouldn't be able to. As for what Longao said, Jian Tian didn't leak it out. He knew that it could be a big or small matter. Tong Zun and Long Tian had successfully killed everyone except for Longao. The two of them were extremely depressed because Longao's departure could possibly reveal their secret. However, after thinking about it, they weren't too worried. After all, they had a grudge against each other. If it was just Longao who said it, not many people would believe it. Nirvana realm martial artists couldn't enter the primordial battlefield. It was an unchanging rule. Who would believe that two Nirvana realm martial artists had entered the primordial battlefield? That was the reason. Long Tian and Tong Zun had just left the primordial battlefield. After returning to their sects, they immediately went into seclusion. After successfully obtaining the origin energy, the next thing to do was to think of a way to refine and integrate the origin energy as fast as possible. Only then could they break through to the peak of the martial Tao. The peak of the martial Tao was to look down on the world. As long as they didn't break through to the peak of the martial Tao, the two of them wouldn't be at peace. Outer Sea. In the Crystal Palace. The marvelous mathematician sat alone in the Crystal Palace with an indifferent expression. Within 3 years, Tong Zun and Long Tian should be able to break through to the peak of the martial Tao. As for Longao, the marvelous mathematician felt helpless when he thought of Longao. He could calculate everyone's fate except for Longao's. At this moment, the marvelous mathematician regretted choosing Longao. Although Longao was talented and had great potential, his strength was too low. God knew how long it would take for him to break through to the peak of the martial Tao. Long Tian and Tong Zun only took 3 years to break through to the peak of the martial Tao. Comparing the two, no matter who it was, they would choose Long Tian and Tong Zun over Longao. 3 years. Longao, I'll give you 3 years. If you can't break through to the Nirvana realm in 3 years, I will choose to give up on you. I hope you won't blame me for this. If Longao, Long Tian and Tong Zun were here, they would be shocked to hear the marvelous mathematician's words. Because the three of them were the marvelous mathematician's chess pieces, and the marvelous mathematician was the one who controlled the chess pieces. 3 years, Longao wanted to break through from the peak of Heavenly God realm to the Nirvana realm. It was simply a fool's dream. Not to mention breaking through from the Heavenly God realm to the Nirvana realm. Even if he wanted to break through from the peak of Heavenly God realm to the Nirvana realm, he might not be able to do it in a short 3 years. For example, Yi Fei had spent more than 10 years since he was half a step into the Nirvana realm. It was easy to imagine how difficult it was to break through to the Nirvana realm from the Heavenly God realm. Chapter 1370. A Chess Piece. Longao had always had a feeling that he seemed to have always been a chess piece. It was as if there was a hand in the unseen world that was gripping everything tightly. Longao had been staying in the sword sect. Apart from cultivating every day, he would visit the sword sect. On this day, after Longao finished cultivating, he stood up and stretched his body. He pushed open the door and walked out. Everyone in the sword sect knew about Longao. Outsiders might not know, but the disciples of the sword sect definitely knew about him. This time, more than 1,000 people had entered the ancient battlefield, but all of them had been wiped out. None of them had been able to leave the ancient battlefield alive. This matter had caused a sensation in the sword sect. Even if Jian Tian and Murong Guanar wanted to hide this matter, it was absolutely impossible. Longao had also entered the ancient battlefield, but he was the only one who had come out alive. Longao was probably the only one who knew about the ancient battlefield. Lu Changsheng. Looking at Lu Changsheng, who was teaching the disciples of the sword sect a lesson not far away, Longao laughed. Previously, Lu Changsheng had been provoking Longao. After being defeated by Longao, Lu Changsheng had become much more well-behaved. In fact, Lu Changsheng had already seen Longao, but he had pretended not to see him. Until now, Lu Changsheng was still a little unable to accept the fact that he had been defeated by Longao. As the sword sect's law enforcement elder and a martial artist at the peak of the Heaven God realm, from the beginning to the end, Lu Changsheng had never taken Longao seriously. This was also the true reason why Lu Changsheng had been unable to accept it. Learning from his mistakes, Lu Changsheng did not dare to continue provoking Longao. Lu Changsheng, we haven't seen each other for a year. How have you been? Hearing Longao take the initiative to talk to him, Lu Changsheng's heart sank. He was very surprised. Longao's character had always been that if people didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. If people wanted to offend him, he would offend them. It was precisely because of this that under normal circumstances, Longao rarely took the initiative to provoke others, even if it was his own enemy. This time, Longao, what do you want? Lu Changsheng looked gravely at Longao, who was in front of him, and felt very fearful. The surrounding disciples of the sword sect stayed far, far away. One was the disciplinary elder of the sword sect, while the other was a fearless lunatic. Once the two started fighting, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lu Changsheng, you've always disliked me? Although Lu did not speak, his face was AO, Lu Changsheng, Lu Changsheng, Lu Changsheng, since there's a chance today, why don't we settle our previous scores? I'll give you a chance. As long as you win, I'll cut my own throat here. The more confident Longao appeared, the more uncertain Lu Changsheng felt. Thousands of people had entered the ancient battlefield, but Longao was the only one who came out alive. This in itself spoke volumes. His strength was unfathomable. Lu Changsheng's expression changed again and again because he could no longer see through Longao's true strength. Could it be that Longao had entered the ancient battlefield, obtained an opportunity, and improved his strength? Previously, he had already lost to Longao, let alone now. He kept retreating. Lu Changsheng's expression turned increasingly ugly and gloomy. He knew very well that if he fled without a fight, he would be utterly humiliated, even more than before. If he didn't flee, even if Longao killed him, he believed that the old ancestor and the master would not seek justice for him. As the sword sect's disciplinary elder, Lu Changsheng knew many things, including the fact that the old ancestor valued Longao. Otherwise, the old ancestor would not have allowed Longao to enter the ancient battlefield a year ago. Longao, don't push me too far. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Lu Changsheng did not want to fight. If he lost or died, it would be too late for regrets. Ha ha ha, Longao laughed. Lu Changsheng's expression turned even gloomier. This world was like this. If you were strong, you could do whatever you wanted. If you were weak, you could only passively take a beating. This was the rule of the Tianwu continent. When he entered the Tianwu continent, he was weak. No matter who saw him, they all wanted to bully him. What was the reason? Wasn't it because he was weak? Lu Changsheng, one move is the limit. If I can't defeat you, I will immediately cut my own throat. One move. Lu Changsheng, who had been considering whether or not to leave, was stunned when he heard Longao's words. The surrounding sword sect disciples were also stunned. No one had expected Longao to say such a thing. One move. Was Longao really that confident? It wasn't just Lu Changsheng who didn't believe it. Even the people around them didn't believe it. As a peak heavenly god, Lu Changsheng was extremely confident. If he couldn't even block one move from his opponent, then there was no point in living. Alright, Longao, I hope you won't regret this. Lu Changsheng knew that if he chose to flee, it would be very difficult for him to continue living in the sword sect. Even if Longao could defeat him, he wouldn't be able to defeat him in one move. Unless Longao's cultivation base had already broken through to the supreme divine realm. But was that even possible? A year ago, Longao really had been a deity. No matter how fast his cultivation speed had been, at most, he would have just broken through to the earth god realm. If he could break through to the supreme divine realm, that would be impossible unless Longao wasn't human. Taking a step back, even if Longao's cultivation had already broken through to the celestial god realm, Lu Changsheng also had full confidence. Not to mention one move, even if it was 10 moves, the other party might not be able to defeat him. One move was the limit. If he could withstand it, Longao would commit suicide here. In front of so many people, Longao might not be so shameless. Thinking of this, Lu Changsheng's confidence instantly exploded. Everyone was looking forward to it. Although they didn't believe it, the legend of Longao had failed. If a lunatic who had continuously caused havoc in the Martial Artists Alliance could really defeat the law enforcement elder in one move, then there would be a good show to watch. Master. Disciple greets the master. Right at this moment, Murong Guenar suddenly appeared. Whether it was Longao or Lu Changxing, they all bowed respectfully. The two of them said in unison, "Greetings to the master." Nodding, Murong Guenar said indifferently, "I already know about your situation. One move is the limit. If Longao loses, he will commit suicide here. If he wins, what do you think?" Everyone looked at the master. They wanted to know what the master would do. No matter what, Longao was still an outsider, while Lu Changxing was the law enforcement elder of the sword sect. Their statuses were completely different. If Longao can defeat Lu Changxing in one move, then from then on, Lu Changxing will no longer be the law enforcement elder of the sword sect. He will reflect on his mistakes for 3 years. F***ck hearing the master's words, everyone was shocked. If the master did this, wouldn't it mean that the master was biased towards Longao? If it was really a person, it would probably cause objections. However, since the master had already made his decision, no one dared to say anything. Chapter 1371. Lu Changxing was also a little surprised. Could it be that the master was going to give up on him for Longao? If that was the case, he would be in for a tragedy. Lu Changxing never expected that the master would be so biased towards Longao. Otherwise, he would never have provoked Longao. He had miscalculated. It was too late for regrets. Lu Changxing knew very well that there was only one thing he could do now, and that was to block Longao's move. He did not care about Longao's life or death at all. It would be best if Longao killed himself here. Looking at Lu Changxing's expression, Longao already knew what Lu Changxing was thinking. "You want to kill me? Begin." Looking at Longao in front of him, Murong Guenar also wanted to see how strong Longao was now. There were endless opportunities in the ancient battlefield. Longao had been in the ancient battlefield for a year and had successfully left the ancient battlefield. He would never believe that Longao did not obtain any fortuitous encounters. He wanted to see what kind of fortuitous encounter Longao had obtained. Others might not believe in Longao, but Murong Guenar was 100% convinced. The reason was simple. Murong Guenar knew Longao's character well. Longao would not be so arrogant without full confidence. In other words, since Longao dared to limit himself to one move, he believed that Longao could really defeat Lu Changxing in one move. One move. In the eyes of outsiders, Lu Changxing was definitely more important than Longao. No matter what, Lu Changxing was still the sword sect's law-enforcing elder, while Longao was just an outsider. In Murong Guenar's opinion, Longao was more important than Lu Changxing. For Longao did not hesitate to fall out with Tongzun. One could imagine how important Longao was to the sword sect. Unfortunately, Lu Changxing and the others did not know this. "Longao, make your move." Even so, Lu Changxing was still very confident. Until now, he still did not believe that Longao could defeat him in one move. Was that possible? The two of them looked at each other. In the next second, a terrifying divine domain erupted from both of their bodies at the same time. Regardless of whether it was Longao or Lu Changxing, the divine domain that erupted was the divine domain of a heavenly deity. Divine domain. Feeling the divine domain that erupted from Longao, everyone was shocked, including Murong Guenar and Lu Changxing. Just as I expected. Murong Guenar was very surprised, but it was within his expectations. Because Longao had entered the ancient battlefield, with Longao's talent and potential, it was not impossible for him to break through to the divine domain within a year. So what if you're a divine domain? Lu Changxing suddenly laughed crazily. Heavenly deity, he was also a heavenly deity. Even now, Lu Changxing still couldn't believe it. The other party was a heavenly deity, he was also a heavenly deity. Could it be that Longao could really defeat him in one move? Moreover, he was also a divine domain martial artist. But in the next moment, Lu Changxing's expression finally changed. Because the divine domain released by Longao was too strange and powerful. The divine domain he released did not even have the power to resist and was directly swallowed by his opponent's divine domain. Time stop. Longao was very confident in his own strength. Among martial artists of the same level, no one was his match. It was more than enough to kill a divine domain martial artist. Dragon. Before Lu Changsheng could finish his words, Longao's body had already disappeared. Time Shorekill technique. Longao used the Black Divine Domain and Time Shorekill technique, leaving Lu Changsheng with no chance to fight back. From the beginning to the end, Lu Changsheng did not even have the chance to fight back. What a powerful martial technique! Seeing that Longao could lock onto Lu Changsheng and even change the flow of time, Murong Guenar was a little stunned. Because he did not know what attribute Longao's martial technique was. Could it be that this martial technique came from the ancient battlefield? In the next second, Longao's figure appeared in front of Lu Changsheng. Lu Changsheng was already defeated in half a move. Within one move, Longao killed Lu Changsheng. It was almost a matter of minutes. No matter who it was, they had already seen this situation. Those who want to kill will be killed. Longao did not hold back at all. Because mercy to the enemy was the greatest cruelty to oneself. As long as Lu Changsheng did not die, he would always be a danger to himself. Who knew if Lu Changsheng would deal with him in the future? It was precisely because of this that Longao was prepared to eliminate the root of the problem. Kill. Longao used his finger as a sword and prepared to kill Lu Changsheng with sword chi. Both sides were at the same level. Lu Changsheng had no chance of escaping. In other words, in this situation, Lu Changsheng would undoubtedly die. But what was the result? Longao, give me some face. Murong Guenar released the aura of heaven and earth and fiercely suppressed it. If he resisted forcefully, Longao also had the aura of heaven and earth. Even if Murong Guenar intervened, he could still kill Lu Changsheng. However, Longao did not do so. It was still the same words. This was the sword sect, Murong Guenar's territory. If he completely fell out with Murong Guenar, it would be very disadvantageous for him. Moreover, was it worth it to fall out with Murong Guenar for Lu Changsheng? Longao did not continue to attack. He coldly looked at Lu Changsheng in front of him and said with a smile, "You've lost. But remember, from now on, you'd better not provoke me. Otherwise, I will make you regret being born into this world." Longao had a feeling that if he let Lu Changsheng go this time, there would be great trouble in the future. However, Murong Guenar had already spoken. He could not offend Murong Guenar. Until now, Lu Changsheng was somewhat dumbfounded. From beginning to end, he had not had any chance to fight back. Longao's strength was too strong. At the same level, in front of Longao, he was like a child standing in front of a big man. He had no power to resist. Longao, you win. Even if there were 10,000 unwillingness to admit defeat in his heart, a loss was a loss. Lu Changsheng was very clear in his heart that he was able to keep his life. It was all because of the sovereign. In other words, if it wasn't for the sovereign's words to stop Longao, he believed that he would have died at this moment. Just thinking about it made him feel scared. Even so, Lu Changsheng was still very unconvinced. However, now was not the time for revenge. As the saying goes, it is never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Lu Changsheng, since you've already lost, do as I said. You may leave. Since things had already reached this point, Lu Changsheng did not dare to stay any longer. After thanking Murong Guenar, he immediately turned around and slowly left. In a short while, Lu Changsheng's figure had disappeared without a trace. Longao, are you willing to take over Lu Changsheng's position and become the Sword Sect's law enforcement elder? Chapter 1372. The Law Enforcement Elder. Hearing the Master's decision, everyone was dumbfounded. The Master's intention was clear. He wanted to rope in Longao. If someone else became the Law Enforcement Elder, some people might not be convinced. But Longao, no one was unconvinced. Longao's strength was obvious. He had caused trouble in the Martial Artists Alliance twice, returned from the ancient battlefield, and defeated Lu Changsheng with one move. All these showed that Longao was extraordinary. Talents were a scarce resource no matter where they went. He would definitely agree. Everyone could assert that in the face of such a temptation, unless Longao's brain was flooded with water, he would not refuse. The Sword Sect was one of the top 10 sects. The law enforcement elder of the Sword Sect was a very high position in the Sword Sect. It was impossible for ordinary people to get it. Would Longao agree? Master, please forgive me. I can't agree. Longao refused. Was this for real? Seeing that Longao refused the master without even thinking, everyone was a little dumbfounded. They did not know what Longao was thinking. It was such a rare opportunity. How could he refuse it? He must have been kicked in the head by a donkey. The law enforcement elder of the Sword Sect was a position that countless people dreamed of. There was no surprise. Murong Guenar seemed to have guessed that Longao would refuse. Otherwise, if Longao really agreed, he would not be Longao. Murong Master, I still have something important to do, so I'll take my leave. 4 days had passed. He had waited. Longao knew very well that even if he left now, Zhen Tian and Murong Guenar would not suspect him. Taking a step back. Even if Zhen Tian and Murong Guenar suspected him, there was nothing he could do. He could not stay in the Sword Sect forever. After all, there were many things waiting for him. He nodded. Murong Guenar did not continue to urge Longao to stay. After a few simple polite words, Longao stood up and left. An hour later. In the main hall of the Sword Sect. Ancestor, how's the investigation going? At this moment, Zhen Tian's face was extremely solemn and gloomy. It was as ugly as it could get. It was as if he owed someone $10 million. I'm not sure about what Longao said, but when I went to the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family, I found that Tongzun and Long Tian were both in seclusion. At this point, Zhen Tian didn't continue. Murong Guenar was not a fool. He already knew what the old ancestor meant. Could it be that Long Tian and Tongzun had really obtained the origin energy? Otherwise, why would the two of them choose to cultivate in seclusion at this time? There was something fishy about this. Before Murong Guenar could finish, Zhen Tian continued, what Longao said should be 80% true. If that's the case, we're in big trouble. Murong Guenar's face turned solemn. He certainly knew that if Long Tian and Tongzun had really obtained the origin energy and reached the peak of the martial arts realm, who would be their match? After leaving the Sword Sect, Longao did not return to the Dragon Valley in the Jojo continent. Regardless of whether the Sword Sect and Murong Guenar believed him or not, Longao was almost certain that Long Tian and Tongzun had obtained the origin energy. If this was true, he would be in big trouble. Longao was very clear. According to the grudges between him, Long Tian and Tongzun, once they reached the peak of the martial arts realm, the first person they would deal with would be him. The Massacre Abyss. The 5 abyssal lords of the Massacre Abyss were Hong Lingtong in the east, Yang Ling in the south, Luo Qingfeng in the west, Guo Li in the north, and Yi Chen in the middle. The Massacre Abyss was now Longao's subordinate. Even now, Longao had no idea why the 5 lords of the Abyss would submit to him out of the blue. What was the reason? Longao's purpose in entering the Massacre Abyss this time was simple. He wanted to borrow the power of the Massacre Abyss to test the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance. In the end, Longao was very wary of Tongzun and Long Tian. Once the two of them reached the peak of the martial arts realm, even the Heavenly Tao would not dare to fight the two of them together, let alone him. Master, what orders do you have this time? Looking at the young man in front of them, the 5 abyssal lords cursed in their hearts. The 5 of them knew very well that every time Longao entered the Massacre Abyss, nothing good would come out of it. Last time, they almost lost their lives, but due to the deterrence of the mysterious man in black, the 5 of them did not dare to say anything and continued to pretend. This time, I came to the Massacre Abyss for only one purpose. From now on, we will start to deal with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. Go and get ready immediately. F***CK, they cursed in their hearts again. They knew Longao entering the Massacre Abyss was not a good thing, but the 5 of them did not expect Longao to come here for this. To deal with the martial artists' alliance and the Long family was completely suicidal. The five of them looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. Hong Lingtong coughed and said with a smile, "Master, I know you have a grudge with the martial artists' alliance and the Long family. It's a matter of life and death. There are some things that I must say." "Go ahead." How could Longao not know what the five of them were thinking? But this time, he entered the Massacre Abyss to use the power of the Massacre Abyss to deal with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. It was imperative, and he could not give up. Otherwise, he would not have entered the Massacre Abyss for no reason. "Master, the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family both belong to the 10 forces. Needless to say about their strength and background, I believe you also know the strength of the Massacre Abyss. Not to mention 1 against 2, even in a 1 against 1 situation, we have no confidence to win." Hong Lingtong told the truth. Although they had already chosen to surrender, they had no choice. If they followed Longao and brought about their own destruction, the five of them would not be willing to do so. In their eyes, to deal with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family was the same as bringing about their own destruction. If Longao was stupid, there was no need for them to be stupid with him. In the end, the five of them did not want to agree at all. But still, they had no choice because of the deterrence of the mysterious man in black. The Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family will not cooperate. Moreover, the reason why I chose to deal with them is not to fight them head-on. We can defeat them one by one. Master, we can't do anything about this. The five of them had made up their minds. Even if the mysterious man in black came personally, they would do what they had to do. They could not follow Longao to their deaths just because they were afraid of the mysterious man in black. Chapter 1373. Longao did not expect that the five of them would reject him without hesitation. With this, it made Longao somewhat confused. What did the five of them mean? Under normal circumstances, since the five of them had chosen to submit to him, they should listen to him. But what happened? He only wanted to deal with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family, but the five of them rejected him without even thinking about it. Was this called submission? He definitely felt uncomfortable in his heart, but Longao did not stop the five of them, because he knew very well that the five of them had already made up their minds. If he insisted on doing so, then there would only be one result, and that was to shed all pretense of cordiality. Without the help of the Massacre Abyss, how could he deal with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family on his own? He clenched his fists. His eyes were deep. At this moment, no one knew what Longao was thinking. The next day, nobody knew where the news came from. Longao killed Longbo in the ancient battlefield, and it instantly shook the Tianwu continent. The Earth ranking, the most valuable ranking in the Tianwu continent. Yi Fei, first on the Earth ranking. Longbo, second on the Earth ranking. As everyone knew, Longao's strength was not as good as Yi Fei and Longbo. The reason why he could be first on the Earth ranking was because he had caused trouble in the Martial Artists Alliance twice and successfully escaped from the Nirvana Realm martial artists. In other words, no one believed that Longao's strength could surpass Yi Fei and Longbo. The result? Longao successfully killed Longbo. Although many people did not want to believe it, the truth was right in front of them. They had to believe it. Longao had also received the news. It was precisely because of this that his heart was greatly alarmed. This was because Longao did not know who had spread this news. Many people had seen him chasing after Yi Fei. As for killing Longbo, everyone who saw it was dead. Who was it? After thinking about it, Longao could only think of two people, Tongzun and Long Tian. Apart from the two of them, Longao could not think of anyone else who would have leaked the news. Since the Massacre Abyss was unwilling to help, Longao was planning to stall for time and find a suitable opportunity to continue dealing with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. The current situation. As the news of him killing Longbo spread, Longao was almost certain that he did not need to deal with the Long family. He believed that the Long family would definitely deal with him to avenge Longbo. As expected. As the news of Longao killing Longbo spread throughout the Sky Martial continent, The Long family was furious to the extreme. Long Tien had already gone into seclusion to cultivate. The current dragon sect was still under the control of Long Di Tien. Long family. In the main hall. Patriarch, whether Long Ao really killed Long Bo is still unknown. If we rashly attack Long Ao and force him to do something, I'm afraid that Long Ao will go crazy. At this point, Long Hang did not continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Long Ao had previously caused a ruckus in the Martial Artists Alliance, causing the Martial Artists Alliance to be in chaos. In the end, there were countless casualties. Now that he thought about it, it was still vivid in his mind. Long Hang was very worried. If Long Ao really went crazy, even if the Long family was able to kill Long Ao, they would still have to pay a price. If that was the case, it would not be good for the family. How could Long Di Tien not know what Long Hang meant? How could he remain calm when his son died? At this moment, Long Di Tien was like a volcano that was about to erupt. If not for his rationality telling him not to be rash, Long Di Tien would have already exploded. In the end, Long Di Tien was also very afraid of Long Ao. With a heavy snort, Long Di Tien said with a murderous aura, Long Ao dared to kill my son. This time, no matter who tries to stop me, I will make him die without a burial ground. Patriarch, should we report this to the old ancestor? No need. Long Di Tien had already made up his mind. If Long Tien was still around, Long Di Tien might still be able to suppress him. But now, as the head of the dragon sect, no one would dare to say otherwise. Furthermore, Long Bo had already fallen. Patriarch, what should we do now? Long Hang lowered his head and thought for a moment. Great Elder, immediately gather your men. No matter what, you have to find Long Ao in the shortest time possible. Then, send people to the 9 provinces continent and destroy Long Ao's family. Long Hang had already guessed that with Long Bo's death, the Patriarch would definitely do this. Long Di Tien only had one son, Long Bo. Furthermore, Long Bo was the #1 genius of the Dragon Clan, #1 on the Earth leaderboard. Whether it was for public or private reasons, Long Di Tien would not let Long Ao off easily. He would not even let Long Ao's family off. Since things had already come to this point, Long Hang did not hesitate and immediately turned to leave. In the entire hall, only Long Di Tien was left. His gloomy face was filled with killing intent. This time, Long Bo's death seemed to have dealt a huge blow to Long Di Tien. Otherwise, Long Di Tien would not be so reckless. He did not even care about the consequences of Long Ao going crazy. Long Ao, I will let you know the consequences of killing my son. Not only you, but even your family will suffer with you. Following that, sinister laughter spread to every corner of the hall. The 5 Abyss Masters did not agree. Long Ao did not continue to stay in the Massacre Abyss. He left the Massacre Abyss the next day. As soon as he came out, he heard the news of him killing Long Bo. At the peak of the mountain, Long Ao stood alone at the peak of the mountain, quietly enjoying the cold wind as he looked at the endless void in the distance. Long Ao was looking in the direction of the Long family. Long Ao had already received the news that the Long clan had not only issued a kill order to him, they had even issued a kill order to his own family. They had also threatened that no matter who killed him or destroyed his family, they would be heavily rewarded. This battle was unavoidable. Long Ao knew very well that regardless of whether he killed Long Bo or not, as long as the Long family believed him, he would be in trouble. Long Ao did not have the slightest fear. At worst, he would fight. If he could not win, he would resort to guerrilla warfare. The one who had nothing to lose was not afraid of the one who had shoes to wear. The only thing he was worried about was his family. Long family was one of the 10 forces. Whether it was strength or heritage, they were all there. Once the Long family found the location of the Dragon Valley, wouldn't they be in big trouble? Family was Long Ao's bottom line. No one could touch it, no matter who it was. Long Ao was a little solemn because he did not know what to do. He definitely could not fight force with force. After all, he could not use the previous method twice. Even the 9 Needles sealing spirit could not be used. If that was the case, things would be very troublesome. Brother Long, you don't have to worry. The location of the Dragon Valley is well hidden. Long family will not be easy to find. Chapter 1374. Bai Ling was very worried about Longao. Bai Ling was very clear that the family was Longao's bottom line. She nodded, then shook her head. Longao said helplessly, Bai Ling, you don't know. The Long family is much stronger than we thought. Once the Long family finds the Dragon Valley, the consequences will be unimaginable. Her heart was filled with worry. She sighed deeply in her heart. Things had already reached this point, and Bai Ling didn't know what to say. No matter what, the Long family's strength was there for all to see. With just Longao's current strength, he really couldn't contend against the Long family. How could she help Brother Long? After thinking about it, Bai Ling couldn't think of a better way to help Longao. Xiling's figure appeared at the same time. He looked at the endless void in front of him and said, Longao, aren't you an array master? Longao nodded. He didn't know what Xiling meant. Could it be that Xiling wanted him to set up an array? Longao had already thought about this point. However, he was very clear that with his current array skills, even if he set up an array outside the Dragon Valley, it would be useless. An array master was an existence above martial artists. In the Tianwu continent, there were 3 types of people who were the most powerful. Other than martial artists, the other 2 were alchemists and array masters. There had never been a person who could cultivate all 3. Only Longao was able to cultivate at an incomparable speed. Even his array skills and alchemy skills were especially powerful. All this time, Longao had been working hard on his cultivation. Furthermore, he had been cultivating the Tao of arrays, but he had neglected the Tao of alchemy. Array masters, in ascending order, were level 1 array master, level 2 array master, level 3 array master, level 4 array master, level 5 array master, level 6 array master, level 7 array master, level 8 array master, level 9 array master, level 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 array master, and level array master. Longao's current array formation skills had already smoothly broken through to the Emperor level. He was only a step away from becoming a God-level array formation master. It was only a step away, but the difference in strength was huge. The difference between an Emperor-level array master and a God-level array master was like the difference between a child and a burly man. If he was a God-level array master, Longao had full confidence that once he set up an array, he would be able to ignore the Long family. He seemed to be able to read Longao's mind. Xiling thought for a moment and said, Longao, I don't think you can stop the Long family with your level of array formation. But I have a way. What is it? Hearing that Xiling had a way, Longao was instantly pleasantly surprised. He couldn't wait to ask. The most troublesome thing right now was his family. If he could solve his family's problem, then everything would be good. Sister, tell me quickly. Not only Longao, but even Bai Ling was a little impatient. Bai Ling, do you remember the Sword Realm? Sword Realm? Hearing her sister's words, Bai Ling's expression changed instantly. She seemed to already know what her sister was about to say. Shaking her head, Bai Ling said firmly, No, this can't be done. Seeing Bai Ling's expression, Longao was very curious. What was the method that Xiling was talking about? Why was Bai Ling so excited? Bai Ling, let your sister finish first. Bai Ling seemed to want to say something, but she was stopped by Xiling. Longao, you already know who my sister and I are. Back then, we took the risk of devouring our original bodies to strengthen ourselves. Unfortunately, at the last step, the enemy took advantage of us and caused us trouble. Speaking of this, Xiling had an extremely angry murderous aura, but he suppressed it in the end. Although Xiling didn't finish his words, Longao already understood. It seemed that the 2 of them were at the last step of their cultivation and were taken advantage of by the enemy, causing them to be seriously injured. Otherwise, the 2 Genling wouldn't have been reduced to such a state. Longao still didn't understand. What did this have to do with his family? Jianling, if you want to reach the Supreme Realm, you have to condense your own sword realm. Here's the point. Back then, my sister and I chose to devour our original bodies in order to condense our own sword realm. Unfortunately, we failed at the last step. Otherwise, I believe that we would have achieved the Supreme Sword Dao by now. Longao still didn't say anything. Bai Ling didn't say anything as well. Let's not talk about this. Just the sword realm alone, Longao, although my sister and I were seriously injured, at the last moment, we successfully condensed our sword realm. He was shocked. Longao knew very well that the sword realm that Xiling mentioned just now must be very powerful. Until now, Longao still didn't know how powerful Xiling and Bai Ling's original bodies were. As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, Xiling didn't say anything. However, Bai Ling said, "Brother Long, the sword realm that we condensed is something that even the power of origin can't resist." F***CK. Just as expected. Longao finally understood why Xiling was so confident in the sword realm. If that was really the case and he set up the sword realm around the Dragon Valley, even the Heavenly Dao wouldn't be able to enter the Dragon Valley, let alone the Long family. Longao, although my sister and I have condensed our sword realm, we are seriously injured and can't set it up anymore. Even if we do, the Heavenly Dao can break it and enter the Dragon Valley. However, Long Tian and the others don't have the strength to enter. Hearing Xiling's words, Longao was extremely depressed. If they couldn't set up the sword realm, wouldn't that mean that they didn't say anything? Could it be that Xiling was playing with him? It shouldn't be. Longao knew Xiling's character very well. Xiling wouldn't tease him for no reason. Could it be that he could set up the sword realm? Xiling, are you able to set up the sword realm or are you unable to? At this point, Longao really wanted to know what Xiling meant. It was too anxious. If Xiling didn't say anything, Longao wouldn't be so anxious. Xiling smiled. This smile made Longao even more anxious. However, Longao had a plan in his heart. Because Xiling smiled, it meant that Xiling definitely had a plan. Just as expected. Longao, although my sister and I can't set up the sword realm now, we can use some kind of power and environment to set up the sword realm. As I said just now, even if we can't stop the Heavenly Dao from entering the sword realm, others, including Long Tian and the others, can't enter the sword realm without permission. That's enough. Longao was afraid of the Long family and not the Heavenly Dao. This was because he knew that as long as he didn't provoke the Heavenly Dao would never come to deal with him unless it had nothing better to do. Chapter 1375. To be able to resist the Long family was enough. Xiling, what should we do? My sister and I need to prepare. It will take about a month. Without waiting for Longao to speak, Xiling continued, Longao, you have to remember that even if my sister and I can set up the sword realm, it can only last for 3 years. After 3 years, the sword realm will disappear. 3 years. 3 years wasn't a long time, but it wasn't a short time either. 3 years is more than enough. Longao was very confident in himself. If he could not even break through to the Nirvana realm in 3 years, then there was no point in continuing to fight with the Long family. 3 years, perhaps to other martial artists, was a very short period of time. To break through to the Nirvana realm from the Heavenly God realm, not to mention 3 years, even 30 years, or even 100 years might not be enough. However, Longao was very confident. From the time he was a trash in the Scarlet Fire Town until now, it had been less than 3 years. He had also advanced from the postnatal realm to the Heavenly God realm. If he had not experienced it himself, he would not have believed it even if he was beaten to death. Under such circumstances, it was a very good thing for Longao that the Dragon Valley could be peaceful for 3 years. Next, Longao rushed to the Dragon Valley as fast as he could because he did not know when the Long family would find the location of the Dragon Valley. If the Long family was faster than him, the family would be in big trouble. Dragon Valley. Longao, who had just returned to the Dragon Valley, heard that Yu Yin had left the Dragon Valley and was going to the Tianwu continent to look for him. Longao's expression changed drastically, and his face was filled with worry. At the back of the Dragon Valley, in an elegant pavilion. "Grandfather, I am very worried about Yu Yin's departure this time. I will personally go to the Tianwu continent later." Yu Yin's identity was different now. After all, he had forcefully brought Yu Yin back. In addition to the previous incident, would the Martial Artists Alliance still treat Yu Yin the same way as before? Wang Yidao and Longao were very clear about the relationship between the two. Because of this, the two of them didn't try to persuade him any further. The two of them were very clear about Longao's character. Once he had decided on something, he would not change his mind. Yu Yin could risk going to the Martial Heaven continent for Longao. On the other hand, Longao would also risk going to the Martial Heaven continent for Yu Yin. "Ao, why did you come back this time?" Wang Yidao and Longao were not fools. They knew very well that if there was nothing wrong, Ao would not return for no reason. He nodded. Longao did not hide anything in the slightest. He recounted the matter this time in full detail. After hearing this, the two men's faces turned ugly. Regardless of whether it was the Martial Artists Alliance or the Long family, they were both powerful and had a solid foundation. Could the strength of a sect alone contend against a Long family? The two of them were very serious, but they were not very surprised. They already knew about the grudge between Ao and the Martial Artists Alliance, as well as the Long family. "Ao, what are you going to do? If the Long family launched a large-scale attack, how many people in the Dragon Valley would be able to escape?" Longao didn't hide anything from his two grandfathers. "I'm going to set up a sword realm around the Dragon Valley. Unless the heavenly Tao descends, no one will be able to enter the Dragon Valley. Even if Long Tian descends personally, he won't be able to enter." Hearing this, the two of them were overjoyed. "Sword realm? What's a sword realm?" The two of them didn't ask much as they trusted Longao very much. From the beginning to the end, Ao had grown too quickly. If it weren't for Ao, the Long family would still be a small family in Scarlet Fire Town. They wouldn't be able to dominate the Jojo continent. Longao didn't say much. The sword realm was a secret between Xiling and Bai Ling. Without their permission, Longao wouldn't tell anyone about it, including his two grandfathers. "Grandpa, once the sword realm is set up, no one is allowed to leave the Dragon Valley unless there's something important." "No problem, we'll take care of this." Wang Yidao and Longao were well aware of the seriousness of the matter. Once the Dragon Valley was exposed, who knew what would happen? It was better to be safe than sorry. In the following time, Longao led Xiling and Bai Ling to prepare for the Sword Realm. On the other side, Wang Yidao and Longao gave orders at the same time that no one in the Dragon Sect was allowed to leave the Dragon Valley without their permission. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. Although the two of them didn't say what was going on, everyone in the Dragon Valley knew what was going on. It seemed that Longao's enemies were coming again. No one panicked and no one left because everyone in the Dragon Sect trusted Longao. Everyone treated Longao like a god. Outside the Dragon Valley, "Xiling, it's all up to you." Xiling nodded. He knew that the family was Longao's bottom line. So even if it was difficult to use the Sword Realm, he was prepared to give it a try. Back then, in order to successfully condense the Sword Realm, the two sword spirits did not hesitate to risk their lives to devour the original body. After successfully devouring the original body, the two successfully condensed the Sword Realm. They were only one step away from achieving the Supreme Sword Dao. Unfortunately, at the last step, the two of them had been ambushed by their enemies. In the end, they had been heavily injured and had almost died. Even now, the two of them hadn't fully recovered. Even the Sword Realm couldn't be used. Otherwise, other than the God Diviner, who else on the Martial Heaven continent could be their match? The Sword Realm was a supreme existence that surpassed the core energy. Even the heavenly Daos weren't their match. Bai Ling and Xiling worked together, hoping that they could successfully create the Sword Realm. Longao stood to the side, waiting in anticipation. He wanted to help, but he was powerless to do so. The wind was blowing in the Martial Heaven continent. A great battle was about to erupt. As the news of Longao killing Longbo spread, the Long family chased after him everywhere. Not only that, but the Long family even wanted to deal with the dragon sect. Countless people flocked over, wanting to find the whereabouts of Longao and the dragon sect. In any case, they didn't need to do anything themselves. As long as they found them, they would be heavily rewarded by the Long family. The Long family had already guessed that Longao had most likely moved the dragon sect to the 9 provinces continent. After all, the Martial Heaven continent was the Long family's territory, while the 9 provinces continent was the dragon sect's territory. However, the Long family didn't have the slightest fear. They sent a large number of disciples into the 9 provinces continent, preparing to conduct a thorough search. No matter what happened, they had to find the dragon sect. Long Di Tien was clearly enraged this time. Not only were there ordinary disciples, there were even over 1,000 divine Dao warriors and supreme divine Dao warriors. What kind of concept was this? Over 1,000 divine Dao warriors and supreme divine Dao warriors had entered the 9 provinces continent. Even if they destroyed the 9 provinces continent, it would be a matter of minutes. However, the Long family didn't do so. They only had one enemy, and that was the Longao. If they killed the innocent, it would definitely incur the wrath of the people of the continent. To the Long family, this wasn't the slightest bit of benefit. He believed that the Long family wouldn't do such a brainless thing. Dragon Valley. Longao had already received news that the Long family had entered the 9 provinces continent en masse. Perhaps because he didn't want to fight with the Long family, the Martial Artists Alliance's forces had all withdrawn from the 9 provinces continent, including the other sects. In other words, the current overlord of the 9 provinces continent was the Long family. There was also a hidden overlord, which was the previous overlord. That was the dragon sect that had forcefully risen in just a few short years. Speaking of which, it was very happy. The dragon sect originally belonged to the Long family. That was because the dragon sect's predecessor was the Long family, and it was only a 6th rank Long family. In the eyes of the Long family, it wasn't even worth mentioning. Let alone a 6th rank Long family, even a 3rd rank Long family, or even a 2nd rank Long family, the Long family wouldn't even put them in their eyes. No one would have thought that a small 6th grade Long family would develop to become the overlord of the Jojo continent in just a few short years. The Long family and the dragon sect were originally one family, but now they were going to meet on the battlefield. It was really a very funny thing. Everyone, including the other sects of the Martial Heaven continent, was waiting to see the Longao and the Long family clash. Whether it was the Longao's death or the Long family's heavy losses, everyone was looking forward to it. Under normal circumstances, with the dragon sect's power, how could it contend against the Long family? However, the Longao's several counterattacks made many people think highly of the Longao. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people who thought highly of the Longao. The Long family has sent a large number of experts to the 9 provinces continent. Should we close our doors and not do anything, or should we fight the Long family? The person with the highest authority in the dragon sect wasn't Long Haosha, Wang Yidao, or Long Yi. It was Longao. No one had any objections to that. Longao wasn't the slightest bit surprised that the Long family had come to the 9 provinces continent. He had already guessed that it would be strange if the Long family didn't come. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. Grandfather, leave this matter to me. No matter what happens, don't leave the Dragon Valley. Longao was very clear that if he was alone, he wouldn't have any misgivings about running away. However, if someone from the Dragon Valley was captured, it would be troublesome. For example, if Long Tien hadn't suddenly appeared, he wouldn't have been able to leave the Long family. Be careful, Ao. Long Ao nodded. He wasn't the slightest bit worried about the Divine Path experts and Supreme Divine Path experts the Long family had sent. With his strength, his reincarnation avatar, and the Nirvana Divine Bow, killing Divine Path experts would be a matter of minutes. Even Supreme Divine Path experts, as long as they weren't God Emperors, he could kill them in an instant. God Emperors. How many God Emperors did the Long family have? Long Ao sneered. Since the Long family wanted to play, he would play with the Long family and see who would have the last laugh. Chapter 1376. This time, the Long family had settled in the 9 continents. Just the Supreme Path and Supreme Path warriors alone numbered more than 1,000. This did not include the other disciples of the Long family. It could be seen that the Long family was really angry this time. They vowed to destroy the dragon sect. This time, the Long family sent out 3 peak emperor god warriors. They were Long Ting, Long Bo, and Long Dajo. Even if the 3 of them were not as strong as Long Bo, they were not much weaker. If the 3 of them joined forces, even Long Bo would not be able to contend against them. It was very strange. The Long family did not send out a Nirvana Realm warrior this time. After all, one Nirvana Realm warrior was better than thousands of soldiers and horses. The 3 of them were not together. The 9 continents was vast, and it was not easy to find a dragon sect. As a result, the 3 of them split up and searched for the whereabouts of the dragon sect. In fact, the 3 of them knew very well that no matter who it was this time, as long as they could successfully kill Longao and destroy the dragon sect, they would definitely be rewarded by the master. They might even be focused on training. The 3 of them were full of energy. They could not wait to kill Longao and destroy the dragon sect. In front of absolute temptation, everything was fleeting clouds. The 3 of them did not care about the legend of Longao. They thought that Longao was just a small supreme path warrior. Not to mention the 3 of them joining forces, not to mention more than 1,000 people joining forces. Even if any one of them came out, they believed that they could easily destroy Longao. This was confidence. The 3 of them were at the top of the Long family all year round. Their talent and strength were there, and they had never experienced this. If the 3 of them had seen Longao's madness with their own eyes, they did not know if they would still look down on Longao. As for Longao's side, no matter what, the dragon sect had been developing in the 9 continents for several years. Even if they did not become the overlord of the 9 continents, everyone knew that the dragon sect was already the true overlord of the 9 continents. No one from the Dragon Valley came out, but there were many affiliated sects of the dragon sect. Under normal circumstances, these so-called affiliated sects should have chosen the Long family instead of the dragon sect. After all, the Long family was not an existence that the dragon sect could contend with. But what was the result? 70% of the sects in the 9 states chose to stand on the side of the dragon sect. They weren't even afraid of the Long family. Even the Long family didn't know what was going on. Were these people not afraid of death? Long family didn't start a massacre. Once they provoked public anger, it wouldn't be good for the Long family at all. With the help of these affiliated sects, Longao knew every move of the Long family like the back of his hand. The 3 of them split up and acted separately. Longao was even more clear about where their positions were. Dragon Valley. Inside the pavilion. The surroundings were elegant and quiet. This was one of the few restricted areas in the Dragon Valley, and it was a place where the higher-ups of the Dragon Valley held secret meetings. Under normal circumstances, very few people dared to enter this place. Currently, there were 2 people sitting in the pavilion. One was Longao, and the other was Longao's grandfather, Longao. Now that you've grasped the movements of the 3 people, what are you going to do? Actually, Longao's question was pointless. He had already guessed what his grandson was going to do. He knew his grandson too well. If people didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. If people wanted to offend him, he would definitely offend them. This time, the Long family's intention was clear. They wanted to completely destroy the dragon sect. If Longao could tolerate this, he wouldn't be the Longao anymore. However, Longao was very worried about his son. He had already received news that the 3 people leading this time were geniuses from the Long family, and they were all peak emperor god warriors. Aoa was only a peak heavenly god. Longao was no longer the Longao of the past. He knew the difference between a heavenly god and an emperor god very well. Grandfather, I've been defeated one by one. Longao had already thought about this. This time, the Long family wanted to destroy the dragon sect. If he was a coward, wouldn't he be laughed at by the world? Are you confident? Grandfather, Look. Longao had just finished speaking when he summoned Longbo from the dragon seal space. Previously, when he killed Longbo in the ancient battlefield, Long Fu used the fastest speed to refine Longbo into a corpse slave. It was all for the sake of dealing with the Long family. This is Longbo. Seeing Aoa nod, Long Haotian's expression was extremely interesting. He never thought that the Long family's number one genius, Longbo, who was ranked second on the Earthboard, would be here. Could it be? Long Haosha was one of the few people who knew about his grandson refining a corpse slave. Because of this, Long Haosha had already guessed that Longbo had been refined into a corpse slave by his grandson. Although it was a little unbelievable, the truth was right in front of him. Long Haosha clearly knew that Longbo was the Long family's number one genius and ranked second on the Earthboard. He was extremely powerful. Other than Yi Fei, Longbo could be considered the number one under the Nirvana realm. Who could be his opponent? How did Aoa do it? As if he could read his grandfather's mind, Long Ao didn't hide anything. He told his grandfather everything that had happened in the ancient battlefield. After hearing this, Long Haosha sighed and said, if that's the case, then Longbo died at the hands of the Blood Kirins. That's right. Long Ao knew that he couldn't have killed Longbo with his own strength. The pressure of the 10 Blood Kirins had forced Longbo to use blood escape. When Longbo was severely injured, Long Ao took advantage of the situation and killed Longbo in one fell swoop. Then, he successfully refined Longbo into a corpse slave. Aoa, are you saying that you want to use Longbo to deal with the three of them? If that was the case, then Long Haosha was relieved. Corpse slaves and soul slaves were much stronger than the original body. Longbo's corpse slave was more than enough to deal with the three of them. Long Haosha finally understood why his grandson was so calm. It turned out that he already had a plan. Grandfather, the battle between us and the Long family cannot be avoided. I have an agreement with the dragon. No matter what happens between us and the Long family, the dragon will not interfere. If that's the case, then we may not lose. But as I said before, don't open the Dragon Valley until I find a way to increase my strength. Even if there were thousands of people in the Dragon Valley who had the inheritance of the divine path, so what? In front of the Long family, no matter how many divine path warriors there were, they were nothing. As long as a few divine path warriors came, who in the Dragon Valley could fight against them? Because of the safety of the family, Long Ao didn't want to use the family's power. He wanted to face the Long family alone. Even if he lost, he could just leave alone without any worries. Chapter 1377. How could Long Haosha not know what Aoa meant? Long Haosha knew that no one in the entire Dragon Valley could help Aoa. If he were to force it, he would only be a burden to Aoa. Next, based on the news brought back by the affiliated sects, Long Ao chose the only female among the three, the so-called Long Ting. Long Ting, a pinnacle emperor god. Furthermore, she was a genius of the Long family. Among Long Ting, Long Dazhou, and Long Bo, Long Ting was the weakest. This was also the reason why Long Ao chose Long Ting directly. Nameless Peak, Long Ting led thousands of people to station here. Among the thousands of people, there were more than 300 Supreme Dao martial artists and Supreme Dao martial artists. Big sister, we have been in the 9 states for 10 whole days, but we still haven't found the whereabouts of Long Ao and Dragon Sect. What should we do now? The world of the 9 prefectures was neither big nor small. Even if the 9 states continent could not be compared to the Sky Martial continent, it was definitely not an easy task to find a person or a sect in the 9 states continent. Long Ting's face was gloomy. It was as ugly as it could get. Big sister. She waved her hand. Long Ting said helplessly, let's wait and see. Long Ao is already a stray dog. As long as we continue to search, I don't believe that we can't find the whereabouts of Long Ao and Dragon Sect. Long Ting was full of confidence. If Long Ao had the confidence to go against the Long family, he wouldn't have hidden and not dared to come out. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Long Ting was very clear in her heart that once she found Long Ao and destroyed the Dragon Sect, her future would be bright. Do you really hope to find me?
Who?
Hearing the sudden voice, everyone, including Long Ting, was shocked. They did not know who had arrived. Could it be Longao? As though she had thought of something, Long Ting's face changed slightly. She did not know if it was surprise or surprise. She asked, "Are you Longao?" Ha ha ha. With a burst of laughter, Longao's figure appeared in front of everyone. As the saying goes, a person's reputation is like a tree's shadow. No matter how these people looked down on Longao before, when Longao really stood in front of them, they couldn't help but take 3 steps back. Their faces were full of shock. Longao? Was the young man in front of him really Longao? Everyone was dumbfounded, because they were currently looking for Longao, but they did not expect that Longao would take the initiative to offer himself. Was Longao not afraid of death? Long Ting laughed coldly and said, "Longao, aren't you a little too arrogant? Do you really think you're invincible? Heavenly God realm." Long Ting could clearly sense that the young man standing in front of her was only a heavenly god. There was a huge gap between them. Long Ting really couldn't figure out what gave Longao such great courage. He clearly knew that he was no match for her, so why did he still dare to come? Could it be that Longao had something to rely on? "You're Long Ting." Long Ting was not only a peak god emperor warrior, but also a super genius of the Long family. She was also ranked in the top 30 of the Earth board. One could imagine how strong and powerful Long Ting was. "So what if I am? Long Ting, I believe you've been looking for me for a long time. Now that I'm standing in front of you, I really want to see how you're going to deal with me." Looking at the confident Longao, Long Ting lost confidence in his heart instead. The more Longao was like this, the more unsure Long Ting felt. Could it be that Longao was really fearless? "Kill him." With Long Ting's order, the 300 people behind her rushed forward. None of them were afraid of Longao. But what was the result? "All of you, stop." Without Long Ting's order, everyone had already stopped abruptly. They looked at Longao in shock. Strictly speaking, they were looking at the young man beside Longao. The young man beside Longao was none other than Longbo, the #1 genius of the Long family. He was also Long Di Tian's biological son. "Big brother. Big brother, you." Without waiting for Long Ting to finish speaking, her face became even gloomier because she had already discovered that there was something wrong with the big brother beside Longao. His face was wooden, as if his mind was being controlled by someone. "Longao, what did you do to Big Brother? What does it have to do with you?" Longao smiled. Ever since he killed Longbo in the ancient battlefield and refined him into a corpse slave, Longao had been waiting for this moment. Longbo's original body was a peak god emperor warrior. His strength was above Long Ting's. Now that Longbo had been refined into a corpse slave, his strength was stronger than his original body. Therefore, it was easy to use Longbo's corpse slave to deal with Long Ting. Big Brother was already dead. This was something everyone knew. Since that was the case, why was Big Brother still here? Could it be that Big Brother wasn't dead? That shouldn't be the case. The sudden appearance of Longbo in front of her made Long Ting confused. She didn't know what was going on. If that was the case, the family could be said to be a little reckless this time. Big Brother wasn't dead. It was obvious that someone wanted to sow discord between the family and Longao. Who was it that did this? Things had already reached this stage. Long Ting also knew that this battle was unavoidable. Either you die or I die. Even at this moment, Long Ting was still full of confidence. Because from the beginning to the end, Long Ting didn't put Longao in her eyes. It was still the same sentence. Heavenly God warriors and God Emperor warriors weren't on the same level. The difference between the two was too big. Kill him. The 300 people still rushed forward and attacked Longao crazily. As for Longbo, he stood there motionlessly like a zombie. The more it was like this, the more curious Long Ting was. She didn't know how Longao did it. Long Ting didn't stay idle. She took a step forward and rushed forward. Long Ting had already decided that no matter what, she would first kill Longao and then bring Big Brother back to the family. She believed that with the family's strength, it would be more than enough to cure Big Brother. If Long Ting knew that Longbo had already fallen, the Longbo standing in front of her was just a corpse slave. If Long Ting knew, who knew what she would think? If the Long family knew about this, Long Di Tien would probably be angered to death. His son, his only son, was actually refined into a corpse slave by Longao. This was 100 times worse than death. But in the next moment, the one who fought Long Ting and the others wasn't Longao, but Longbo fighting 1 against 1,000, Longbo became more and more courageous as he fought. As a peak stage God Emperor warrior, not to mention the others, even Long Ting wasn't Longbo's opponent. Moreover, Longbo was a corpse slave now, and his strength was above the original body. Chapter 1378. Big Brother, what are you doing? Being pressured by Longbo step by step, there were even a few moves where Long Ting was almost killed by Longbo. Seeing this situation, Long Ting did not know what happened at all. Could it be that Big Brother's mind was really controlled by Longao? Counterattacking herself. Long Ting was very clear in her heart that Big Brother already did not have the slightest consciousness now. Even if he could be cured in the future, it would probably be very harmful to Big Brother. Thinking up to here, Long Ting's heart was simply furious to the extreme. Longbo and Long Ting were not biological siblings, but the two people's relationship was extremely good. Killing each other. Long Ao's body disappeared on the spot, entering the dragon seal space. What Long Ao wanted was this result. He could almost be sure that with Longbo's corpse demon's strength, killing everyone, including Long Ting, no one could leave alive. Just as Long Ao guessed. Longbo's strength was very powerful in the first place. Now that it was refined into a corpse demon, it was even more abnormally terrifying. More than 1,000 people did not dare to meet force with Longbo. If by any chance they accidentally killed Longbo, how would they explain to the Patriarch at that time? If this happened, it would be big trouble. In a short several tens of minutes, there were more than 1,000 people just now, but now there were only 400 people left. A total of 600 people were mercilessly killed by Longbo. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Long Ting's expression could be considered gloomy to the extreme. Barely avoiding Longbo's attack, with a turn, Long Ting brought the remaining 90% of the people and all left. The remaining 10% of the people pestered Longbo tightly so that Long Ting and the rest could leave safely. Long Ao's figure appeared. Looking at the countless figures gradually leaving, the corners of his mouth slowly curled into a trace of a cold smile. Long Ao also did not expect that Long Ting would sacrifice dozens of people to let him leave safely. This was the so-called Long family, this was the so-called family disciples. Long Ao despised Long Ting very much in his heart. Actually, this time, Long Ao was also probing. If Long Ting did not do so, she would definitely fall here. Once she did so, Long Ting's shamelessness would be revealed. Long Ting was unable to affect the battle situation. In the end, Long Ao did not put Long Ting in his eyes. Long Ting, who left, did not dare to continue alone, but sent out a cry for help. The next morning, Long Dazhou and Long Bo had already arrived. As soon as the two of them saw Long Ting, they couldn't help but ask in unison, "Little Ting, what exactly happened?" The two of them had already guessed that if it wasn't for Long Ao, Long Ting wouldn't have called for help. Could it be that Long Ting had found Long Ao? Since things had already come to this point, Long Ting did not hide anything. She roughly recounted everything that had happened yesterday in full detail. After listening to the story, whether it was Long Dazhou or Long Bo, both of their faces were gloomy to the extreme, but more than that, they were shocked. First of all, who was it that wanted Long Ao and his family to kill each other so that both sides would suffer? Secondly, even if Long Ao didn't kill Long Bo, Long Ao obviously controlled Long Bo's mind and used Long Bo to deal with them. This was even more shameless than killing Long Bo. Finally, Long Ao's strength was there for all to see. Not to mention Long Ting alone, even if the three of them joined forces, they still wouldn't be a match for Long Bo. This was the difference in strength. What should they do? You already know what happened. Now, let me ask you, what should we do now? Long Dajo thought for a moment and said, "The reason why Longao is so fearless is because Big Brother's mind is controlled by him. I believe you and I both know Big Brother's strength. If we fight force with force, we won't be a match for Big Brother at all. In the end, we will only be killed by Big Brother one by one." After listening to Long Dajo's analysis, Long Ting and Long Bo's faces became even uglier. Also, Big Brother's mind is controlled now. We can't kill him. If anything happens to Big Brother, how will we explain it to the Patriarch? This was the most troublesome thing. Only Long Bo could attack them, but they couldn't attack Long Bo. Just thinking about it made their balls ache. In my opinion, we should send the truth back to the family. As for what to do, we will listen to the family's arrangements. If it was just Longao alone, the three of them would definitely not choose to give up so easily. However, the situation now was completely different. Longao controlled Long Bo's mind. Unless a Nirvana realm martial artist personally came, no one was a match for Long Bo. Also, there was Long Bo's identity. Everything had a what if. If they hurt Long Bo, they would still end up dead in the end. Thinking of this, Long Ting and Long Bo nodded in agreement. A few hours later. Long family. Inside the main hall. Looking at the news sent by Long Ting and the other two, Long Ditien sat calmly. However, the murderous aura emitted from his body showed that Long Ditien was extremely angry at this moment. He was just forcefully suppressing it. HMPH, Long Ao. What a Long Ao. He actually controlled Bo Er's mind. Patriarch, there must be someone behind this. Why don't we wait and see what's going on first? How could Long Ditien not know what the Great Elder meant? He waved his hand and said coldly, "No matter who is trying to drive a wedge between us, Long Ao must die." The three of them are no longer able to kill Long Ao. Bo Er's strength is obvious. Long Ditien was very clear about his son's strength. Other than Yi Fei from the Martial Artists Alliance and Shapotian from the Myriad Beast sect, no one was a match for his son. Unless a Nirvana realm martial artist personally came. Yi Fei was ranked first on the Earth ranking. Long Bo was ranked second. As for Shapotian from the Myriad Beast sect, he was not ranked on the Earth ranking. The reason was simple, no one had fought with Shapotian before. This was because Shapotian could mobilize all the spirit beasts in the world. No one knew his true strength. Patriarch, if that's the case, what should we do now? Long Hang was very unconvinced. This matter was clearly very strange, but the Patriarch still insisted on doing it for the sake of avenging his son. If someone else encountered this situation, would Long Ditien do it? Absolutely not. However, Long Ditien was still the Patriarch of the Long clan. Unless the old ancestor personally intervened, even Long Ditien did not have the right to question him. Ever since the old ancestor appeared, Long Hang seemed to have given up on going against Long Ditien. This was because he knew that even if he continued to fight, he would be the one to suffer in the end, and not Long Ditien. Rather than that, it was better to stop early and be the Great Elder peacefully. After thinking for a while, Long Ditien's face was extremely gloomy as he coldly said, "Great Elder, this time, you will personally go to the 9 provinces. No matter what happens, you must bring Boa back. As for Long Ao, I want to see him alive or dead. There can be no mistakes. P.S. Little Jew wishes everyone a Happy New Year. May your wishes come true and be healthy." Chapter 1379. Himself. Of course, Long Hang wanted to kill Long Ao, but now was not the time. This was because Long Hang knew very well that Long Ditien was doing this to let him take a step forward. If he could kill Long Ao, he would have to thank the heavens. If he couldn't kill Long Ao, wouldn't his reputation fall? He cursed in his heart. Even if he was unwilling to go to the 9 provinces continent, Long Hang knew very well that Long Ditien had already ordered him to go. Otherwise, he would be openly going against the Patriarch's wishes. He had no choice. Long Hang stood up and left the Long family, leading a few people towards the 9 provinces continent. 9 provinces continent. When Long Ting and the other two received the news from their families, they were not as excited as they had imagined. This time, the three of them thought that they would be able to kill Longao smoothly and obtain a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But in the end, a Longao appeared by Longbo's side for no reason, and his mind was controlled by Longao, causing them to be unable to make a move smoothly. In the end, they could only ask for help from their families. Long Hang's arrival indicated that no matter who killed Longao, the credit would go to Long Hang. Were the three of them willing? Even if they were unwilling, the three of them could only be angry and not dare to say anything. Who asked the three of them to be unable to kill Longao? In an abandoned valley. You two, tell me, what should we do now? According to my calculations, if nothing unexpected happens, the Great Elder will arrive at this time tomorrow. At that time, no matter who kills Longao, I believe that the credit will go to the Great Elder. There was no one around. Long Dajo's expression was very ugly as he said solemnly, Longao has controlled Big Brother's mind. With the three of us, we are no match for Longao. This. Long Ting and Long Bo looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness and depression in each other's eyes. Long Dajo thought for a moment and continued, at this time tomorrow, the three of us will not be able to make the decision. The two of you, I have a suggestion. Tell me. In fact, the two of them had already guessed it. Before the Grand Elder arrives, the three of us will take one last gamble. If we lose, we will die. If we win, the three of us will definitely receive the full support of the clan in the future. How could Long Ting and Long Bo not know what Long Dajo meant? The two of them lowered their heads and thought for a moment. Long Ting raised her head and said, even if we take 10,000 steps back, even if we lose, we might not die. You're right. Since that's the case, let's begin immediately. The three of them were prepared to stake everything on this one move. Victory or defeat would depend on this one move. If he won, he would definitely receive the full support of his family in the future. If they were defeated, the chances of them dying were very small. At worst, they could just return to their clans. It wouldn't be too bad for the three of them. The allure of the family's full support and nurturing was too great. The three of them could not resist at all. Then where should we go to find Longao now? I'm here. You don't have to look for me. Looking at Longao who suddenly appeared in front of them, the three of them were very surprised. The more Longao acted like this, the more uncertain the three of them were. Just a moment ago, the three of them were still prepared to take a gamble. Now that they really saw Longao, the three of them did not know what to do. Could it be that they really had to fight? Looking at the three of them in front of him, the corner of Longao's mouth slowly curled into a cold smile. How could he not know what the three of them were thinking? Without further ado, Longao directly summoned Long Bo's corpse from the dragon seal space. If it was just Longao alone, the three of them did not have the slightest fear. At the end of the day, Longao was just a puny Empyrean god, but the three of them were genuine God-Emperor martial artists. With the three of them joining hands, forget about Longao, even Long Bo would not dare to easily contend against the three of them. The three of them looked at each other and saw a trace of bewilderment in each other's eyes. Didn't the three of you say you were looking for me? Since that's the case, I'm already here. The three of you can take action now. Longao's face was filled with disdain and contempt. Even more so, it was disdain. This was a super genius from a Long family. This was the so-called God-Emperor martial artist. It was true that seeing one in person was not as good as hearing about one's reputation. Looking at the contempt and disdain on Longao's face, the three of their faces turned gloomy. Being looked down upon like this, they felt a little angry just thinking about it. It was simply infuriating to the extreme. Longao, if you have the ability, then fight with us. Why do you need to borrow Big Brother's strength? Provocation. The three of them were not afraid of Longao. The one they were truly afraid of was Long Bo. No matter what, Long Bo's strength was there for all to see. If they were to go all out in a head-on battle, the three of them would not have the slightest bit of worry. However, in the current situation, they could not attack Long Bo with all their strength. In that case, they would be in a very passive position. Once they were in a passive position, the slightest bit of carelessness would allow Long Bo to take advantage of the situation. The consequences would be unimaginable. Longao was well aware of the shamelessness of the three of them. This battle is not a problem. Are you guys prepared to fight 1-on-1 or 3 against 1? Up to you. Since that's the case, then I'll take a little loss and fight all of you alone. As soon as his voice fell, Longbao's corpse slave had already been sent into the dragon seal space by Longao. His intention was very clear. Was this for real? Seeing that his big brother had already disappeared, Longao looked as if he was preparing to fight 1-on-1. Could it be that Longao was really prepared to fight 1-on-3? Still the same sentence, the more Longao acted like this, the more uncertain the three of them were. However, since things had already reached this stage, the three of them were very clear that this battle was unavoidable. In the next second, the three of them did not continue to speak nonsense. Each of them was like an angry cheetah as they all rushed out with a swoosh. The three of them attacked Longao from different directions, forming an encirclement. 3 god emperors joining forces to deal with a heavenly god. Under normal circumstances, it would be a simple matter for the three of them to kill a heavenly god expert. At most, it would take less than 3 moves for the three of them to attack. But now, not to mention 3 moves, even if it was 10 moves, the three of them still could not successfully kill Ao Long. This made the three of them very depressed. The three of them even wondered if they were still God Emperor martial artists and if the other party was still a heavenly god martial artist. 2 Longaos. Seeing another Longao suddenly appear beside Longao, the three of them were a little dumbfounded. The three of them really could not figure out. Could it be a clone of Longao? The three of them knew that even Nirvana realm martial artists were unable to condense their own avatar, let alone God of Heaven. Only Tian Dao, an expert at the peak of the martial Dao, was able to do this. Since that was the case, how did Longao do it? However, even so, the three of them still continued to attack one after another, not giving Longao any chance. The three of them were very clear that if Longao did not die, once Longao came tomorrow, they would not even have the slightest chance. Therefore, in this battle, Longao must die. Chapter 1380. The three of them wanted to kill Longao. At the same time, Longao also wanted to kill the three of them. Longao knew very well that it was impossible to kill the three of them with his own strength. No matter what, the three of them were powerful. Emperor God warriors, and the three of them joined forces. There was only one way for the reincarnation avatar to kill the three of them, and that was to use the reincarnation avatar to do it. He forced the three of them away with one move. Just as the three of them were about to continue chasing Longao, the reincarnation avatar forced the three of them away with one move. The reincarnation avatar had successfully broken through to the Divine King realm and was 1 level higher than Longao. Even so, it was impossible for the reincarnated doppelganger to kill all three of them by himself. However, the reincarnation avatar had the silent divine bow. Even if he could not kill the three of them, he could at least obstruct them. In that case, Longao would have an opportunity to take advantage of. There was nothing that could not be done, only things that one did not dare to think about. The silent divine bow was pulled back by the reincarnation avatar. Before the three of them could react, there was a swoosh and arrows were shot out. Longao had a rough estimate. With the reincarnation avatar's current strength, he could not kill an emperor god warrior even with the help of the silent divine bow. In other words, if he wanted to kill an emperor god warrior, the reincarnation avatar's cultivation had to break through to the divine emperor realm. The 4 supreme realms were ranked from lowest to highest as the divine king realm, the divine emperor realm, the ultimate god realm, and the emperor god realm. If the reincarnation avatar's cultivation could break through to the ultimate god realm, he believed that he could kill an emperor god warrior in a one-on-one situation without using the silent divine bow. If the reincarnation avatar's cultivation could break through to the emperor god realm, he could easily kill 10,000 people, let alone one-on-one. This was the reincarnation doppelganger. Just the fact that it was immortal was its greatest advantage. Let's go. The three of them were shocked. They rolled and crawled away, finally dodging the Nirvana divine bow's attack. In fact, The three of them didn't know that the reincarnation avatar and the Nirvana divine bow couldn't kill them. The reincarnation avatar had just used the godly destroyer bow when he took advantage of the opportunity to use the god-killing sword. Sword chi crisscrossed and formed a sword net. The three of them jumped in fright. In their hearts, if the three of them hadn't run fast enough, they believed that the three of them would have already fallen. Longao's clone was too powerful. The three of them looked at each other and saw deep fear and helplessness in each other's eyes. If they continued to fight, only death would await them. Retreat. The three of them didn't want to die here. Without even thinking, they turned around and left. The three of them knew that when Long Hang arrived the next day, even if Longao had the help of his doppelganger, he would still die without a doubt. He felt indignant. Even though the three of them were extremely unwilling, they still left in the end. However, would Longao allow them to leave? Longao made use of spatial teleportation, and his body instantly disappeared from the spot. Innate divine ability, Dragon's Roar. At the same time, the three of them, including the hundreds of people who had just arrived, were all shrouded by the aura. Space was locked, and everyone felt extremely terrified. Time Shorekill technique. Longao hadn't used his time Shorekill technique just now because he was afraid that the three of them would backfire on him. After all, the difference between him and the three of them was too great. They weren't on the same level at all. However, the situation was completely different now. The three of them were already at a loss after being frightened by the reincarnation avatar. They even wanted to roll and crawl away. It was precisely because of this that Longao wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to use his time Shorekill technique. There were a total of 3 time Shorekill techniques: time forward, time prohibition, and time rewind. In order to kill the three of them with 100% certainty, Longao used time forward, time prohibition, and time rewind at the same time. Longao had made the right bet. The three of them and the crowd were locked in time. They began to realize that their speed was getting slower and slower while Longao's speed was getting faster and faster. Especially with the help of spatial teleportation, his speed was even faster. Catcher, catcher, catcher. Longao's punches landed heavily on the three of them. With the strength of Longao's punches, the three of them fell down in just a few seconds. In other words, the three of them were already dead. Everyone around was dumbfounded when they saw Long Ting, Long Bo, and Long Dajo being killed by Longao. The three of them were strong, but Longao had killed them with just a few punches. What kind of concept was that? Run. That was what everyone thought in their hearts. Without any hesitation, they immediately turned around and prepared to leave. However, what was the result? Longao would not let these people go. As the saying goes, if you don't remove the roots when you cut the weeds, they will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Mercy to the enemy was the greatest cruelty to oneself. Once these people were let go, they would turn against him in the future. With the help of the divine destroyer bow, the outcome of the reincarnation clone's attack was predictable. Unless it was an emperor god, even an ultimate god would not be able to withstand it. In less than a few minutes, other than one person who managed to escape, the rest were all killed. As for the one who managed to escape, it was done on purpose by Longao because he wanted the news to spread. Longao knew very well that the grudge between him and the Long family had reached a point where only one of them could survive. Since that was the case, he had decided to officially declare war on the Long family from now on. It was still the same old saying, a barefoot man would not be afraid of a man with shoes. Even if his strength was not as strong as the Long family, Longao did not believe that the Long family was omnipotent. They would not be able to kill him in a year, 10 years, or even 100 years. According to Xiling, once the sword boundary was set up, everyone in the Long family, including the old ancestor Long Tien, would not be able to enter the Dragon Valley for 3 years. In that case, he would have no more worries. Long family had already lost more than 1,000 people in the ancient battlefield, all of them were supreme gods and supreme gods. This time, the Long family had lost another 1,000 people, all of them were supreme gods and supreme gods. In total, the Long family had lost more than 2,000 people. Even the Long family could not afford to lose so many people. If the Long family knew about this, who knew what the Long family would think? The next day, Long Hang brought a few people with him to the 9-states continent. As soon as he stepped in, his expression changed because the news of Longao killing more than 1,000 people had spread across the 9-states continent. Everyone knew about it. What the hell is going on? Great Elder, what should we do now? Send this back to the family immediately. Yes. Long Hang did not dare to hesitate and immediately sent the news back to the family. This matter could be big or small, and the family could not afford to lose more than 1,000 people. Once this matter spread to the Tianwu continent, the Long family would lose a lot of face. Long family, in the main hall. Long Di Tian, who had received the news, had an extremely gloomy expression on his face. It was as ugly as it could get, because he had never thought that Long Ao would be able to fight against 1,000 people and kill everyone. If it wasn't for the great clan elder personally reporting the news, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. Di Tian. Looking at Long Tian, who had suddenly appeared in front of him, Long Di Tian immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. Old ancestor, I believe you already know about Long Ao's matter. It's really hard to believe how Long Ao did it. This time, Long Hang is personally going to the 9-states continent. I have a bad feeling in my heart. Under normal circumstances, with the great elder's strength, killing Long Ao was more than enough. However, as the Long Ao's secrets kept increasing, the variables kept increasing. Long Di Tian had a bad feeling in his heart, and that was whether Long Hang could kill Long Ao in this trip to the 9-states continent was really unknown. Di Tian, from now on, you can deal with Long Ao, but don't push him too hard. I have already obtained the origin energy. I believe that in less than 10 years, I will be able to refine and fuse with the origin energy. When I break through to the peak of the martial way, a Long Ao, HMPH. Although Long Tian did not finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. Hearing this, Long Di Tian's face instantly lit up with joy. Because until now, Long Di Tian had only just found out that the old ancestor had obtained the origin energy. Of course, he knew what it meant for a Nirvana realm warrior to obtain the origin energy. 10 years was practically a blink of an eye for him and his family. Long Di Tian smiled and said, Old ancestor, Long Ao has killed so many of our disciples. If we restrain ourselves, we will definitely be suspected. It might even affect our status. How could Long Tian not know what Long Di Tian meant? Don't worry about what's in front of you. I came out this time to tell you that everything will have to wait until I break through to the peak of the martial way. As for everything else, you can put it aside. A warrior at the peak of the martial way was a supreme existence in the sky martial continent. Long Di Tian already understood the old ancestor's meaning. Once the old ancestor's cultivation broke through to the peak of the martial way, other than the heavenly Tao, who else in the entire sky martial continent would be able to contend against the old ancestor? If the old ancestor could really break through to the peak of the martial way, then even if the Long family was reduced to a second-rate power, they would still be able to dominate the sky martial continent in the future. Even if he was extremely angry in his heart, Long Di Tian could only temporarily endure it. Old ancestor, what about the great elder? Let him be. Just as you said, Long Ao killed my Long family's disciples. If we don't do anything about this matter, it will definitely attract the attention of the outside world. From now on, you will hand everything over to Long Hang. You will go into seclusion with me. When I break through to the peak of the martial way, I will always help you to reach my current realm. Hearing this, Long Di Tian was overjoyed. He nodded his head and immediately gave the order without any hesitation. Following that, Long Di Tian followed Long Tian to the back of the mountain and began to cultivate in seclusion. Chapter 1381. Long Hang did not know about the decision of the old ancestor and the patriarch. The next day, dusk gradually faded away, and night slowly descended. Long Hang entered the 9 provinces continent, but he was not in a hurry to find Long Ao. Long Ao had killed over 1,000 disciples this time, causing Long Hang to be in a dilemma. Under normal circumstances, with over 1,000 people working together, it would be more than enough to deal with a small Longao. But what was the result? Great Elder, a letter from the family. After receiving the news from his clan, Long Hang's expression changed slightly after taking a look at it. The meaning of the message from the family was very simple. It was to let Long Hang continue to stay in the 9 provinces continent. No matter what happened, he had to kill Longao. It seemed that Long Di-Tien was really angry. He shrugged helplessly. Even if Long Hang was unhappy and unwilling, he could only endure it. The reason was very simple. Long Hang already had a trace of fear in his heart. Otherwise, Long Hang would not be unwilling to make a move. He had to end the battle quickly. Since things had already come to this point, Long Hang knew very well that he had no way out. This time, Long Hang brought a total of 4 Emperor God warriors. All of them were protectors of the Long family. The 4 of them were all stronger than Longbo, and could be considered to have touched the threshold of the Nirvana realm. They were only 1 step away from officially breaking through to the Nirvana realm. From this, it could be seen that Long Di-Tien was really angry. Otherwise, he would not casually send out such experts. If the 4 of them were to suffer any losses, the Long family would not be able to bear it. A Nirvana realm warrior and 4 peak Emperor God warriors. If such a super force wanted to destroy the 9 provinces continent, it would be a matter of minutes. Even the Long family could not afford to lose 5 people. Especially Long Hang. Even if Long Di-Tien and Long Hang were not on good terms before, Long Di-Tien believed that Long Hang would not be willing to die. This was because Long Hang was not only a Nirvana realm warrior, but also one of the best among Nirvana realm warriors. Long Ao had already received news that Long Hang had entered the 9 provinces continent. After killing the small one, the big one came. Long Ao was not surprised that Long Hang had entered the world of the 9 continents. He seemed to have guessed it. However, what Long Ao did not expect was that the person sent by the Long family this time was none other than his old rival, the first elder of the Long family, Long Hang. He did not act rashly. Long Ao was well aware of his own strength and Long Hang's strength. The difference in strength between the 2 sides was too great. Outside Dragon Valley. Xiling, why did the Sword Realm fail? Hearing that Xiling had failed to set up the Sword Realm, Long Ao was shocked. According to what Xiling had said, there was a 95% chance that the Sword Realm would succeed. But what was the result? He felt a little indignant. Long Ao knew very well that the grudge between him, the Long family, and the Martial Artists Alliance had reached a point where only one of them could survive. If the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance found Dragon Valley, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was almost certain that if the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance found Dragon Valley, they would not show any mercy. Xiling's expression was also extremely ugly. She did not expect that the Sword Realm would fail even though she had cooperated with the right time, place, and people. What was going on? Shaking her head, Xiling said helplessly, "The right time, place, and people are all right. It's impossible for it to fail." What went wrong? Even Xiling did not know. Long Ao was extremely depressed. Long Ao did not say anything because he did not want to disturb Xiling. As for Bai Ling, she looked at Long Ao with concern. She knew very well that if they could not set up the Sword Realm, Dragon Valley would be in great danger. Long Ao, according to my guess, there is only one reason why we could not set up the Sword Realm. What is it? Long Ao could not wait because Long Ao really valued the Sword Realm. If the Sword Realm succeeded, it meant that Dragon Valley would be safe for 3 years. In these 3 years, he could deal with the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance without any worries. Long Ao, you are really lucky. The Dragon Valley that you chose is a huge piece of dragon jade. If you want to set up the Sword Realm here, my sister and I will have to recover to our peak condition. It was almost impossible, and who knew how long they would have to wait. Long Ao was well aware of Xiling's and Bai Ling's injuries. If the 2 Jianling wanted to recover to their peak condition, it was not just a matter of time, but more importantly, strength and opportunity. Otherwise, everything would be nonsense. Longao did not expect that the Dragon Valley that he had chosen by accident would be a place with good feng shui. Longao knew very well what the dragon jade that Xiling had mentioned meant. If they could develop it well, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for everyone in Dragon Valley. Cultivating on the dragon jade, he believed that everyone's cultivation speed would be much faster. Sometimes, when luck came, it could not be stopped. Xiling, what should we do now? Longao was not stupid. If Xiling had said so, he believed that there must be another way. Just as expected. Longao, if you are willing, you can make a trip to Dragon Valley. Once you get the Dragon Spring and combine the Dragon Jade with the Dragon Spring, not only will we be able to set up the Sword Realm, but your Dragon Valley will also become the second Dragon Valley of the Dragon Tribe. I don't need to say more about the rest, I believe you already know. He nodded. Although Xiling did not finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. According to Xiling, once he went to the Dragon Tribe and found the Dragon Spring, the combination of the Dragon Jade and Dragon Spring would increase the cultivation speed of his family members in Dragon Valley by 100-fold. How could Longao give up on something that was perfect for both sides? I will go to the Dragon Tribe immediately. At this time, Bai Ling suddenly said worriedly, Brother Long, with the current situation between you and the Long family, once you go to the Dragon Tribe, even if the Dragon Tribe does not attack you, it will be very troublesome if they tell the Long family about you. How could Longao not know what Bai Ling meant? Although he had an agreement with the Dragon Tribe, the relationship between the Dragon Tribe and the Long family was still there. Especially with the appearance of Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon, it was impossible to continue dividing the Long family and the Dragon Tribe. But could he not go to the Dragon Tribe? Xiling had already made it very clear that whether it was the Sword Realm or his family's cultivation, he had to go to the Dragon Tribe without delay. He knew that it was dangerous, but he still had to go. This was the so-called knowing that there are tigers in the mountain, but still going to the mountain. Thinking of this, Longao said with a determined look, Bai Ling, don't worry, I will be careful. Chapter 1382. Regarding Longao's character, Bai Ling was very clear in his heart. Bai Ling wanted to say something, but in the end, she swallowed her words. Sister, don't worry. With you and me helping Longao, Longao will definitely be able to obtain the Dragon Spring when he goes to the Dragon Clan. Before Bai Ling could say anything, Xiling continued, if nothing goes wrong, the Dragon Jade and Dragon Spring are very important to Longao. Longao smiled. It seemed that Xiling knew him very well. Xiling is right. Bai Ling, don't worry about me. I promise you that no matter what happens, I will be extremely careful. Since things had already come to this point, Bai Ling did not say anything else. The Sword Realm had failed. Longao followed Xiling's instructions and successfully found the whereabouts of the Dragon Jade in the Dragon Valley. Other than Long Haotian, Longao did not tell anyone else about the Dragon Jade. One may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. Longao did not want to cause any more trouble. Aoa, do you mean that as long as you can find the Dragon Spring and combine it with the Dragon Jade, our cultivation speed will increase by more than 10 times? He nodded. In fact, Longao really did not know how many times it would increase his cultivation speed. Everything was according to Xiling's instructions. According to Xiling, as long as he could find the so-called Dragon Spring in the Dragon Valley and combine it with the Dragon Jade, his cultivation speed would increase by more than 10 times if he cultivated in the Dragon Valley. Longao was very clear about what kind of concept this was. Grandfather, we don't have much time left, so we have to make the most of every minute. 3 years. He only had 3 years. Even if he could find the Dragon Spring and successfully set up the Sword Realm, it could only last for 3 years at most. In other words, after 3 years, not only Tian Dao, but anyone else would be able to easily enter the Dragon Valley. That was indeed the case. Longao had already made up his mind. While the Dragon Valley was protected by the Sword Realm, he would work hard to develop the Dragon Valley. He hoped that in 3 years, the Dragon Valley would at least be able to contend with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. After chatting with his grandfather for a while, Longao immediately left the Dragon Valley and headed toward the Dragon Tribe. Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan was one of the strongest clans in the world. Among the countless races of spirit beasts, there were three supreme races. They were the Dragon race, the Phoenix race, and the Chilean race. Following the fall of the primordial divine dragons, the strength of the Dragon Clan became weaker and weaker. Right at this moment. Following the sudden appearance of the primordial divine dragon, the dragon race was like a giant dragon that had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years, suddenly awakening, telling the entire Sky Martial continent that the dignity of the dragon race was inviolable. Within the Dragon Valley. Behind the mountains of the Dragon Valley, inside an extremely well-hidden secret chamber, Long Tien and the primordial divine dragon were cultivating in seclusion. Both of them were seizing the opportunity to refine the origin energy, as the origin energy was simply too important to them. Once they succeeded, they would be able to look down on the world. Even Tong Zun wouldn't be able to contend against them. Even if they failed, they wouldn't lose much. At most, they would continue to hide from the heavenly Daos. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed since they had obtained the origin energy. An entire half a month. Whether it was Long Tien or the primordial divine dragon, they were unable to successfully refine the origin source energy, which made them very depressed, to the extreme. Within the secret chamber, a heavy sigh rang out. Long Tien said helplessly, "Originally, I thought that with our strength, we would only need 10 years to successfully refine the origin energy and break through to the peak of the martial path. But now, I don't have the slightest confidence. Let alone 10 years. Even if we had 100 years, or 1,000 years, we might not be able to do it." The primordial divine dragon also sighed deeply. How could the primordial divine dragon not feel helpless about Long Tien's situation? They had underestimated the ability to refine the origin energy. It was easy to think about, but it was extremely difficult to actually do it. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. There's no other way. After 10,000 years, we finally obtained the origin energy. If we don't refine the origin energy as soon as possible, once the heavenly Daos return, our situation will be very troublesome. Long Tien was well aware of the primordial divine dragon's worries. There's no other way. It seems like we have to go into seclusion. We won't give up until we refine the origin energy. Seclusion. Hearing Long Tien's words, the primordial divine dragon was very surprised. He said, "You should know that once we go into seclusion, whether it's the Long family or the Dragon Tribe, even if something happens, you and I won't be able to intervene." "Of course, I know that. But if we don't go into seclusion, it will be very difficult for us to refine the origin energy. If we can't break through to the peak of the martial path, once the heavenly Daos return, both of us will suffer." Before the primordial divine dragon could speak, Long Tien continued, "If you and I can really refine the origin energy and break through to the peak of the martial path, we won't hesitate even if we have to sacrifice our Long family and the Dragon Tribe." In front of the peak of the martial path, everything was like floating clouds. Even though the primordial divine dragon was extremely reluctant, he knew very well that Long Tien was right. Their top priority now was to refine the power of the origin source as quickly as possible so that they could break through the so-called peak of the martial way. In the end, Long Tien and the primordial divine dragon chose to go into seclusion. Before the man and dragon went into seclusion, they each informed their Long family and the Dragon Tribe, which was the so-called Long Di Tien and the Nine Firmaments divine dragon. This was because the man and dragon knew very well that they didn't know how long this seclusion would take. A year, 10 years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years. He didn't know if it was because his luck was too good, but Longao was on the way to the Dragon Clan. One man and one dragon chose to enter seclusion. For Longao, this was the best opportunity. Longao left the Dragon Valley. It only took him 3 days to successfully resist the Dragon Clan. This kind of speed was very terrifying. Even if it was a supreme divine Dao martial artist, he believed that it was impossible to do so. Longao did not openly enter the Dragon Tribe, because he did not want anyone to know that he had entered the Dragon Tribe, especially those with a Long family. Otherwise, not to mention obtaining the Dragon Spring, It was unknown if he would be able to leave the dragon tribe alive. With the help of spatial teleportation, Longao smoothly entered the dragon tribe. The current dragon tribe was already quite conservative, especially after being sealed by the heavenly Tao. It was unknown if the dragon tribe was scared, but they were not as arrogant as before. Even if the Long family made a move, the dragon tribe would not casually make a move under normal circumstances. Even so, no matter who it was in the Sky Martial continent, no one dared to underestimate the dragon tribe. Among the spiritual beast race, the three supreme races were not a joke. Any one of the supreme races could cause a sensation in the Sky Martial continent that could not be underestimated. Within the dragon tribe. Xiling, where is the dragon spring? Longao, who had entered the dragon tribe, seemed somewhat impatient. This time, he had risked his life to enter the dragon tribe to obtain the dragon spring. It was not only for his family, but also for the sword world. So no matter what happened this time, Longao had already decided that he had to obtain the dragon spring. Otherwise, he would not leave the dragon tribe even if he died. Xiling naturally knew that Longao was anxious. Longao, the dragon spring is also the most important thing to the dragon tribe. If nothing unexpected happens, the location of the dragon spring should be a forbidden area of the dragon tribe. So even if it's me, I have to give some time. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to lock onto the dragon spring's specific location. Understood. Even if Xiling hadn't said it, Longao was extremely clear that something as important as the dragon spring couldn't be hidden away by the dragon tribe. He trusted Xiling greatly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have risked his life to enter the dragon tribe. Xiling didn't hesitate and immediately began to sense the dragon spring. Longao stood to the side, not saying anything to disturb him. He knew that Xiling was trying to lock onto the dragon spring's specific location. He couldn't make the slightest movement, or it would definitely affect Xiling's senses. Big brother Long, don't worry. Big sister's senses are very powerful. I trust that in less than 3 days, I'll be able to sense the dragon spring's location. Hearing Bai Ling's words, Longao smiled. The dragon tribe was unimaginably huge. This was also why Xiling could sense the dragon spring's location in 3 days. If it were anyone else, they might not even be able to sense the dragon spring's location in 30 days or even 3 years. Bai Ling, you and Xiling's injuries are so serious. What do I need to do to help you recover to your peak condition as soon as possible? Longao really wanted to help Xiling and Bai Ling. However, Xiling and Bai Ling hadn't said a word from the beginning. His intuition told him that it wouldn't be easy for them to recover to their peak condition. Longao still didn't know how strong Xiling and Bai Ling were. However, he was almost certain that whether it was Xiling or Bai Ling, their true strength wouldn't be weaker than the heavenly Daos. It might even surpass the heavenly Daos. Big brother Long, my sister and I were just 1 step away from condensing the sword world. But then we were ambushed by an enemy. It's a bit difficult for us to recover to our peak condition. So I'll tell you more about it later. Right now, the most important thing is for you to cultivate faster. My sister and I have already sensed that something big will happen in the Martial Heaven continent soon. Something big? What did that mean? With Bai Ling's strength, even Bai Ling was afraid of something big. Longao curiously asked, Bai Ling, can you explain it clearly? She wanted to say it, but in the end, Bai Ling didn't say it. She smiled and said, Big brother Long, other than cultivating, don't think about anything else. If something big happens and you haven't broken through, not only you, but even your family and sect will be implicated. Trust me. Of course I trust you. Longao naturally trusted Bai Ling. He knew that no matter what happened, Bai Ling wouldn't lie to him. This was Bai Ling's feelings for him. Chapter 1383. Xiling tried his best to sense Long Quan's location. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Longao, who was waiting at the side, was very anxious because the Dragon Clan was different now. With the sudden appearance of the primordial divine dragon, Longao was very clear that the agreement between him and the Dragon Clan was no longer binding. In other words, Now that he was discovered by the Dragon Clan, not only would the Long family deal with him, but the Dragon Clan would also make a move. No matter what, the relationship between Long Tien and the primordial divine dragon was there. He hoped that Xiling could successfully sense Long Quan's exact location. At this moment, Xiling, who had been sensing for 3 days and 3 nights, suddenly opened his eyes and smiled. Seeing the expression on Xiling's face, Longao smiled. Longao knew that Xiling must have successfully sensed Long Quan's exact location, otherwise, Xiling would not smile. As expected. Longao, after 3 days of sensing, I finally sensed Long Quan's location, but. Xiling had an expression of wanting to say something but hesitated, which made Longao very curious, not knowing what had happened. Xiling, what's going on? Not only Longao, but even Bai Ling was also somewhat impatient. Since they had already found Long Quan's location, what else was there? Looking at the 2 people in front of him, Xiling's expression gradually became serious. Do you still remember Heimo? Heimo. Longao was naturally familiar with Heimo, a supreme martial artist who was above the heavenly Tao and could even be compared to the divine mathematician. Once released, the Sky Martial continent would be in a lot of trouble. Heimo was sealed in the draconic mystic realm. Xiling suddenly mentioned Heimo. Could it be that Long Quan was in the dark space? If that was the case, things would be really troublesome. Sister, you mean that Long Quan is related to Heimo? She nodded, then shook her head. Seeing this situation, Longao and Bai Ling looked at each other, even more confused. What did this mean? Elder sister. Before Bai Ling could finish her question, Xiling said, the dragon tribe's dragon spring is very special. If we can obtain it and combine it with the dragon jade, I believe it will be of great help to your family. Hearing Xiling's words, Longao was overjoyed. The Dragon Clan also has dragon jade? No. This time, Longao was a little surprised. The dragon race was one of the most powerful races in the world. Longao originally thought that the Dragon Valley, the headquarters of the dragon race, was also a huge piece of dragon jade, but it turned out that was not the case. A day ago, I had already successfully sensed the location of Dragon Spring. Longao and Bai Ling didn't say anything because they knew very well that what Xiling was going to say next was the main point. After 2 days of sensing, if my guess is correct, the Black Demon was defeated in Dragon Spring 10,000 years ago. Therefore, the Dragon Spring is now mixed with many kinds of energy. Even if we obtain it, we can't directly bring it back to the Dragon Valley. Otherwise, it will only be bad for us. I see. After thinking for a while, Xiling continued, after 10,000 years, the dragon race should have chosen to give up on Dragon Spring. If not, I wouldn't have been able to sense the Dragon Spring's location in just 1 day. They nodded. If this matter was really as Xiling said, Longao wasn't surprised at all. This was because if it were him, he believed that he would have chosen to give up on Dragon Spring like the dragon race. The Dragon Spring had already been mixed with many different types of energy, and one of them contained the energy of Black Fiend. Violet Spirit had already said that having the Dragon Spring was equivalent to not having it at all. Forcefully borrowing the Dragon Spring's energy would only bring harm and no benefits. If that was the case, how would the dragon race dare to continue using Dragon Spring? If that was the case, what was the use of obtaining Dragon Spring? Did he come here for nothing? He was a little unhappy, but more than that, he was unwilling. Dragon Spring was right in front of him, but unfortunately, he could only think about it and couldn't use it. This was like a starving man who had been hungry for 3 days and 3 nights only to see a pile of steamed buns, but he couldn't eat them. Xiling seemed to be able to see Longao's unwillingness and unhappiness. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, although Dragon Spring is mixed with many kinds of energy, we still don't know if we can extract these kinds of energy if we take Dragon Spring away first." "That's right, Brother Long. My sister and I will do our best to help you." Bai Ling's selfless dedication made Violet Spirit glare fiercely at her. Since things had already come to this point, no matter the result, they had to try. Otherwise, if they chose to give up easily, they would be letting down their family. "Xiling, tell me the location of Dragon Spring. I'll go there now." Next, when Longao heard Xiling mention the location of Dragon Spring, he didn't hesitate at all and immediately got up to go to Dragon Spring. According to Xiling, Dragon Spring was previously listed as a forbidden area by the Dragon Clan. Even if they found it, it wouldn't be easy to take Dragon Spring away. However, the situation now was completely different. Dragon Spring had been abandoned by the Dragon Clan. In other words, even if he went to Dragon Spring's location, he believed that the Dragon Clan wouldn't interfere. The premise was that the Dragon Clan didn't know that he had entered. Otherwise, whether it was the Dragon Clan or the Long family, he believed that they wouldn't let him go. Longao's location was very far from Dragon Spring's location. After about half an hour, Longao had successfully entered his destination. Wait. Xiling, what's wrong? Longao was very curious. The Dragon Clan had already chosen to give up on Long Quan, so he believed that he would not encounter any obstacles when he came here. Since that was the case, he should strike while the iron was hot. Otherwise, once the Dragon Clan discovered his tracks, forget about taking Long Quan away, it was still unknown whether he would be able to leave the Dragon Clan alive. Longao, I know what you're thinking. Although the Dragon Clan has given up on Dragon Spring, I can sense that there are 2 supreme divine path martial artists guarding the Dragon Spring Valley. If you can't kill them in seconds, I believe that your tracks will be discovered by the Dragon Clan in a few seconds. The consequences. At this point, Xiling didn't finish his words, but the meaning in his words was already very clear. 2 supreme divine path martial artists. If there were 2 supreme divine path martial artists, even if there were 2 divine realm martial artists, Longao had full confidence that he could kill any supreme divine path martial artists in seconds. However, 2 supreme divine path martial artists, Longao didn't have the slightest confidence. Not to mention killing them in seconds, even if it was a normal battle, whether he could kill 2 supreme divine path martial artists was a big uncertainty. Just now, Violet Spirit had also said that once he was unable to kill the 2 supreme Dao martial artists, then in just a few seconds, his tracks would be discovered by the Dragon Clan, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Since that was the case, what should he do? Chapter 1384. Xiling, I can't kill 2 supreme Dao warriors in seconds. She wasn't surprised at all. Xiling knew Longao's strength very well. It would be strange if Longao could kill them in seconds. Regarding the matter of Longao insta-killing 2 supreme divine Dao martial artists, Purple Spirit also did not have too good a way to deal with it. Sister, why don't you and I help Brother Long this time? She scolded in her heart. According to Xiling's promise, no matter what happened, she and her sister wouldn't help Longao. Her sister. Xiling felt helpless. There was nothing she could do. Her sister was like this, what else could she do? Longao, although my sister and I have not recovered to our peak, it's more than enough for us to kill 2 divine emperors. He was happy. Longao was very clear about Xiling and Bai Ling's strength. Killing a divine emperor was not a problem. Even killing a divine emperor was not a problem. Usually, Xiling and Bai Ling didn't take the initiative to help, so he didn't ask. This time, Xiling and Bai Ling offered to help him first. Longao certainly wouldn't refuse. Just like that, Longao slowly entered the Dragon Spring Valley. He knew that the 2 Supreme Dao warriors wouldn't inform their family once they sensed his aura. Supreme Dao martial artists and Supreme Dao martial artists were simply 2 different levels of existence. They were not on the same level. Just as he expected. Who are you? I'm a disciple of the Long family. I accidentally came here. May I ask Senior, where is this place? Just as Longao guessed, the 2 had sensed his aura. He was just a small divine realm warrior. When they heard the words Long family, they obviously let down their guard. But the next second, before they could react, 2 rays of light burst out from Longao's body. One was purple and the other was white. The 2 rays of light were Xiling and Bai Ling. According to their previous agreement, Longao would be the bait to lure the 2 of them out. As for the rest, they would leave it to Xiling and Bai Ling. With Xiling and Bai Ling's strength, it would be a matter of minutes for them to kill the two of them. The result could be imagined. Longao did not let go of the two divine souls. Once the divine souls of the two supreme divine warriors were refined into corpse slaves, it would be a very good thing for the Dragon Valley. Longao had already decided that after he settled the matter of the Sword Realm, he would immediately enter the spiritual beast forest and continuously kill divine beasts to form an army of corpse slaves. In this way, he believed that he would be able to deal with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. Xiling, I don't see Long Quan. Longao sensed the situation around the valley and did not find Long Quan. However, he was very clear that since Xiling had successfully sensed Long Quan's location, then Long Quan must be here if there was no accident. As expected. Longao, there's an illusory formation here. Formation? Hearing that there was an illusory formation here, Longao smiled. If it was something else, it might be difficult for him to do it. However, Longao was not the slightest bit afraid of formations because he was a formation master himself. Moreover, he was an emperor-level formation master. Breaking an illusory formation was a piece of cake for him. Without the slightest hesitation, Longao began to sense the illusion array around him. In less than a few minutes, he had already successfully sensed the eye of the array and easily broke the array. Immediately after, in the middle of the valley, a huge spring water appeared. It was entirely fiery red. Could this be Long Quan? Longao, you guessed right. This is the spring in front of you. Looking at the spring in front of him, Longao's heart was immediately filled with joy. However, Longao's expression was very serious because he did not know how to bring Long Quan back to the Dragon Valley. As if he could guess Longao's thoughts, Xiling said, "It's easy to take Long Quan away, but you have to be prepared. As long as we take Long Quan away, I believe the Dragon Clan will be the first to know." Xiling did not finish his words, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he understood it clearly. Xiling's meaning was very simple. Once he touched Long Quan, the Dragon Clan would definitely know. Moreover, they would know in an instant. If that was the case, he would definitely be intercepted by the Dragon Clan. Whether he could successfully leave the Dragon Clan was still unknown. But even so, was he really not going to take Long Quan away? However, one had to know that the reason he entered the Dragon Clan this time was to take Long Quan away. Long Quan was right in front of him. If he chose to give up just like that, he would definitely not forgive himself. Precisely because of this, Longao did not even think about it and said with a resolute expression, "Xiling, how should I take Long Quan away?" How could Xiling and Bai Ling not know about Longao's personality? Once Longao decided on something, it would be very difficult to change his mind. Just like this time, Longao entered the Dragon Valley mainly for Long Quan. How could Longao choose to give up when it was the best of both worlds? Next, Xiling told Longao how to take Long Quan away. An hour later, Long Quan suddenly disappeared from the valley, and a few minutes later, Long Di-Tien, Heavenly Divine Dragon and the rest all appeared outside the valley, all of them with serious and angry expressions. No matter who it was, no one was allowed to enter the valley without permission, much less touch the Dragon Spring. This was because the Dragon Spring was considered the most precious treasure of the Dragon Clan. 10,000 years ago, because of the Black Demon, the Dragon Spring was mixed with other powers, so from then on, the Dragon Clan chose to give up on the Dragon Spring, and the Dragon Spring Valley was no longer the forbidden area of the Dragon Clan. Even so, the Dragon Spring Valley could not be casually entered. Otherwise, the Dragon Clan would not have sent two supreme divine warriors to guard the Dragon Spring Valley. Ju Xiao, back then when you chose to give up on Long Quan, I was afraid that something would happen to Long Quan, so I sent two people to guard this place. After so many years, someone actually came to touch Long Quan. He had already given up on the Dragon Spring Valley, but Long Di-Tien had taken the initiative to send two supreme divine warriors into the Dragon Spring Valley. This was obviously not giving him any face, but the heavenly divine dragon did not flare up, especially in front of so many people. Let's see who touched Long Quan first. Even if I choose to give up on Long Quan, I will not allow anyone to take Long Quan away. Longao. Seeing the youth who slowly walked out of the Dragon Spring Valley, everyone was stunned, because no one would have guessed that the person who entered the Dragon Spring Valley without permission and prepared to take Long Quan away would be the Longao, the Long family's greatest enemy. Longao, you are playing with fire. Long Di Tien and the heavenly divine dragon's faces were gloomy to the extreme, because the man and the dragon were furious. Longao's actions were simply a provocation to them, which was also a provocation to the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. If this matter were to spread, where would their face go? Where would the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family's face go? Heavenly Divine Dragon, I believe you haven't forgotten our agreement back then, right? Of course, Long Di Tien knew about the agreement between Longao and the Heavenly Divine Dragon. Even if he was unhappy, Long Di Tien had never said anything, because he did not want to make this matter serious. Longao, of course I didn't forget the agreement between you and me, but you have to remember that I only promised you that I won't deal with you, and I won't interfere in the grudge between you and the Long clan. But now you want to take away Long Quan. I really want to ask you, you provoked my dragon clan like this, if I let you go today, wouldn't I be laughed to death by everyone? Hearing the Heavenly Divine Dragon's words, Long Di Tien heaved a long sigh of relief. Without the slightest bit of surprise, Longao asked with a smile, "What do you want?" Longao. Before Long Di Tien could say anything, Longao's figure suddenly disappeared. He was very clear in his heart that if he wanted to fight head-on, not to mention 1 against 100, even in a one-on-one situation, it would be very difficult for him to defeat one of them. The only way was to take advantage of the fact that the man and the dragon were not paying attention to use spatial teleportation to leave this place. Brother Long, the misunderstanding between us is all because of Longao. In order to show our brotherhood, this time, I will do my best to help you deal with Longao. I don't believe that with the combined strength of the Long family and the Dragon clan, we won't be able to kill a small Longao. Between the Long family and Longao, the Heavenly Divine Dragon would definitely choose the Long family and not the Longao. Long Di Tien laughed and said, "All right, since that's the case, Zhu Xiao, immediately give the order to seal off the Dragon clan. I will send everyone into the Dragon clan. This time, no matter what happens, we will kill Longao." Long Di Tien had already left with Long Tien and was preparing to go into closed-door cultivation. It was a pity that Long Tien was refining the source energy, and the source energy in the surroundings would cause great harm to Long Di Tien. Helpless, Long Di Tien could only leave the secret room. It could be said that Longao's luck was bad. If Long Di Tien's seclusion was successful, then the Dragon clan and the Long family would be without a leader. It would be much easier for Longao to leave the Dragon clan. Just like that, Long Di Tien and the Heavenly Divine Dragon both gave the order to seal off the Dragon clan. The disciples of the Long family, as well as the members of the Dragon clan, all began to frantically search for Longao, not letting go of a single inch. This was because Long Di Tien and the Heavenly Divine Dragon were prepared to conduct a carpet search. They did not believe that with the power of the Long family and the Dragon clan, they would not be able to find traces of Longao from the Dragon clan. In the back mountain of the Dragon clan, on an extremely hidden tree, Longao looked at the Great Hall in the distance, because he knew that the Great Hall was the Dragon clan's headquarters, the Dragon Palace. This time, he had alerted the enemy, and was being chased down by the Long family and the Dragon clan. It would not be easy for him to leave the Dragon clan smoothly. Longao, it seems that Long Quan's importance to the Dragon clan and the Long family far exceeds my expectations. I never thought that Long Di Tien and the Heavenly Divine Dragon would arrive just as you took Long Quan away. Chapter 1385. Xiling, what do you mean? Longao was also curious. Because under normal circumstances, Dragon Spring had already been abandoned by the Dragon clan. Even if the Long family sent people to guard the Dragon Spring Valley, it would not be so fast. Could there be something fishy about it? He thought about it. Longao, according to my guess, if nothing unexpected happens, the Dragon clan has already completely chosen to give up on Dragon Spring. As for the Long family, they are waiting for a miracle to happen. What do you mean? I've already said it before, the current dragon spring has already mixed with many types of energy, and the black demon's energy is the most powerful. Long Di Tian definitely wants to refine the black demon's energy and use it to break through. He nodded. Longao thought about it and felt that Xiling's analysis was very reasonable. As for why Long Di Tian and the heavenly divine dragon rushed over in an instant, there is only one reason. What's the reason? Longao also really wanted to know the reason, because he had just taken Dragon Spring away, and Long Di Tian and the heavenly divine dragon had already appeared. It felt as if one man and one dragon could teleport. It was impossible for them to be so fast. Long Di Tian and the heavenly divine dragon should have set up a taboo in the Dragon Spring Valley, and there should be a transmission array. So that's how it is. Since it had already happened, Longao did not continue to dwell on it. Fortunately, Dragon Spring had already been obtained, and as long as he could return to the Dragon Valley smoothly, Dragon Spring and Dragon Jade would be able to combine. Longao knew very well that with the current situation, it would be very difficult for him to leave the Dragon Clan. As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, Xiling said, "Longao, Dragon Spring cannot leave the ground for too long. According to my calculations, Dragon Spring can only last for half a month at most. Once the time is up, Dragon Spring will dry up, and at that time, even if we bring Dragon Spring back to the Dragon Valley, it will be useless." Half a month. Longao was not surprised at all, because half a month was more than enough for him. If he was unable to leave within half a month, Longao would not expect to be able to leave the Dragon Clan. "Xiling, do you have any good ideas?" Longao was almost certain that the current Dragon Clan had been completely sealed off. Whether it was the Long family or the Dragon Clan, they would definitely go all out to deal with him. "Longao, my suggestion is that you wait and see what happens. You can cultivate in the Dragonfolk, and try to reach the boundless Tao of Gods in half a month. In the last few days, I'm sure the Dragonfolk will let their guard down." Understood. Longao understood what Xiling meant. He had just taken Long Quan away. No matter what the reason was, he believed that the Long family and the Dragon Clan would not let him go easily. In other words, now that the Dragon Clan was heavily guarded, it wouldn't be easy for him to leave. Long Ao's cultivation had already broken through to the heavenly god realm. He was only one step away from officially achieving the supreme divine Tao realm. Just like that, Long Ao did not continue to play hide-and-seek with the Long family and the Dragon Clan. He also did not think of a way to leave the Dragon Clan. Instead, he found an extremely secluded place in the Dragon Clan and began to cultivate quietly. It was easy to think about it, but it was very difficult to cultivate in reality. Not to mention half a month, even if it was 100.5 months, Long Ao knew very well that it would be difficult for him to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. "Brother Long, don't be impatient. I'm fine. It's only been 2 days. It seems that I have to think about what to do next." There was no use in continuing to cultivate like this. After a short period of thinking, Long Ao was ready to take a stroll in the Dragon Clan and try his luck. The Dragon Clan was one of the most powerful clans in the world. It was also one of the 3 most powerful clans among the spiritual beasts. He believed that the Dragon Clan would have many opportunities. "Long Ao, if that's the case, why don't you and I refine Long Quan here? When the time comes, you can also use the power of Long Quan to break through to the supreme divine Tao realm." "That's what I was thinking." 2 days ago, Long Ao had already had this idea. However, Xiling hadn't taken the initiative to say it, and Long Ao was too embarrassed to bring it up. Long Ao released the Long Quan. After being forcefully compressed by Xiling, the originally huge Long Quan was now dozens of times smaller. "Xiling, what should I do now?" "Firmament devouring art." Long Ao understood what Xiling meant. Without the slightest hesitation, Long Ao immediately circulated the firmament devouring art. A huge black whirlpool appeared behind him and began to crazily devour the Long Quan. The firmament devouring art came from the primal chaos tablet. Just as Xiling had said, the firmament devouring art could indeed devour the excess energy within the Long Quan, including the energy that belonged to Hei Mo. The martial heaven continent. As Long Tian and Tong Zun entered seclusion, Jian Tian was very curious. At this moment, he was 90% sure that Longao was right. He was very clear that if there wasn't anything special, the two of them wouldn't choose to enter seclusion at this time. Once the heavenly Daos returned, Long Tian would never be able to rise again. Within the main hall of the sword sect, Jian Tian's expression was extremely gloomy. He was very clear that if Long Tian and Tongzun really obtained the core energy and successfully refined it, the two of them would be able to smoothly break through to the peak of the martial path. If that was really the case, then other than the God Diviner and the heavenly Daos, who would be a match for Long Tian and Tongzun on the martial heaven continent? The 10-direction tripod had always been the overlord of the sky martial continent. Once the two of them reached the peak of the martial path, Jian Tian was sure that both Long Tian and Tongzun would destroy the other forces and become the overlords of the world. Ancestor, if it's really as you guessed, we should immediately join forces with the other sects to deal with the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family. Otherwise, once the two of them reach the peak of the martial path, we won't have the slightest chance. Do we have a chance now? Jian Tian sighed deeply and said helplessly, Feng Nian, your thinking is too simple. I believe you know what the core energy means. If Long Tian and Tongzun really obtained the core energy, they would definitely choose an extremely secluded place to cultivate. With their strength, I believe that they would be able to refine the core energy in less than 10 years. Jian Tian sighed deeply again and continued, if we can find the two of them, everyone will be happy. I believe that with our combined strength, we can definitely kill the two of them. But what if we can't find the two of them within 10 years? Murong Guenar wasn't a fool. He naturally understood what the ancestor meant. If they couldn't find the two of them within 10 years, the consequences would be unimaginable. No matter who it was, they wouldn't be a match for the two of them. Just thinking about it made him feel a little helpless. The two of them had actually suppressed their strength to enter the ancient battlefield and smoothly obtained the core energy. Chapter 1386. Old Ancestor, are we just going to sit here and wait for death? Long Di Tian didn't want to die. No matter who it was, they wouldn't want to die in vain. Even Jian Tian didn't want to admit defeat like this. The problem now is that we don't know where Long Tian and Tongzun are cultivating in seclusion. Also, even if I tell others about this, they won't believe me. Jian Tian was helpless because he knew that if he told others that Long Tian and Tongzun suppressed their strength and entered the ancient battlefield and obtained the origin energy, he wouldn't believe it either. If Longao didn't tell him that Long Tian and Tongzun were cultivating in seclusion, he wouldn't believe it either. What should he do? Wan Shou sect, one of the 10 cardinal factions. Whether it was strength or foundation, Wan Shou sect could be ranked in the top 3 of the 10 cardinal factions. The most important point was that the Wan Shou sect was the natural ruler of spirit beasts. They could command all the spirit beasts in the world. Apart from the 3 supreme spirit beast clans and some ancient spirit beast clans, it was easy to imagine how powerful the Wan Shou sect was. Wan Shou sect. Wan Shou palace. Wan Shou sect's patriarch, Shi Chonggao, sat in the main seat. Below him was Shi Feng, Shi Chong's younger brother and the second-in-command of Wan Shou sect. He was also Shi Potian's second uncle. Previously, someone had ambushed Shi Potian. According to Shi Potian, the person who ambushed him was Shi Feng, his second uncle. The person sitting on the right was Shi Potian. Big brother, according to my investigation, all the people from the 10 cardinal factions who entered the ancient battlefield have died. No one came out alive. Me. Hearing Shi Feng's words, Shi Potian coldly snorted and said, Second uncle, it seems like you're not very well informed. Shi Potian cursed in his heart. Everyone knew that Wan Shou sect's patriarch, Shi Chong, and Shi Feng didn't get along. Although they were brothers, they had always been fighting. The reason was simple, Shi Feng had always been brooding. Why didn't his father, Shi Potian's grandfather, pass the position of patriarch to his big brother instead of him? In Shi Feng's heart, he had always believed that his strength and talent were not inferior to his big brother's. It was precisely because of this that Shifeng could not wait to kill his big brother and seize the position of sect master. Because of this, the relationship between Shipotien and Shifeng was not good. The two of them fought even more fiercely. Otherwise, Shifeng would not secretly deal with Shipotien. Potien, what news did you get? No matter how fiercely the three of them fought, on the surface, Shichong was still the WN Shosect's patriarch. Shifeng didn't dare to openly oppose his big brother, because he was very clear that even if the two of them had a falling out, the WN Shosect would still side with his big brother and not him. Father, according to the news I received, this time, among all the people who entered the ancient battlefield, only 2 people came out successfully. One is Yi Fei from the Martial Artists Alliance, the other is Longao. Shipotien of course knew everything about Longao, and it was precisely because of this that Shipotien was very surprised. He really didn't expect that the small fry that he could easily crush to death would have grown to such a level. He had caused trouble in the Martial Artists Alliance twice and had successfully left the ancient battlefield. If he hadn't received the news himself, he probably wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. Yi Fei, Longao. Shichong, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, "This matter is a bit strange. Unfortunately, among the thousands of people in our WN Shosect, not a single one came out alive. Potien, immediately get up. No matter what happens, you must invite Longao here. I have something to ask him." Whether it was Shipotien or Shifeng, in their hearts, they were very clear about what the patriarch wanted to ask Longao about. Thousands of people were not a small number for the WAN Shosect. Even the WAN Shosect could not afford to lose them. Father. Shipotien seemed to want to say something, but was stopped by Shichong. Shipotien had not left the WN Shosect for a long time since the sneak attack. Regarding this, how could Shichong not know? After thinking for a while, he said, "Potien, this time go with peace of mind, no matter who dares to interfere, kill without mercy." Shifeng's face was very gloomy. He was not a fool, of course. He knew who Big Brother was referring to. There was no other way. If Shichong was determined to deal with him, he really didn't have the confidence to contend with Big Brother. Shipotien smiled. Dragon Clan. Longao used the firmament-devouring art to continuously devour the various kinds of energy in the dragon spring, including the energy of the black demon. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. The speed of devouring the dragon spring was getting slower and slower. On the morning of the 11th day, Longao looked at the crystal-clear dragon spring and deeply breathed a sigh of relief. He said with a smile, "The firmament-devouring art is really powerful. I finally finished the dragon spring in 10 days. Xiling, the dragon spring should be fine now, right?" Xiling and Bai Ling, who were standing at the side, also laughed excitedly. The two of them didn't seem to have thought that Longao could finish devouring the dragon spring in 10 days. Xiling said with a smile, "There shouldn't be any problems. Don't refine all the energy you just devoured, release it immediately." Longao nodded. He understood Xiling's meaning very well. He didn't dare to hesitate and forced out all the energy he had just devoured with the help of the firmament-devouring art. Once these energies were refined and integrated, not only would there be no benefits, it might even hinder his cultivation speed. "Longao, your opportunity has come." "What opportunity?" Longao couldn't wait, because Xiling had just said that as long as he could devour all the other energies in the dragon spring, he could use the dragon spring to increase his cultivation level. As for how to do it, Longao didn't know. "Longao, now that the dragon spring has been nurtured for tens of thousands of years, I believe it has reached some kind of secret realm. As long as you enter the dragon spring to cultivate, if there are no accidents, your cultivation will be able to break through from the heavenly god stage to the supreme divine stage." He was pleasantly surprised in his heart. It would be unrealistic to say that he was not excited. However, Longao asked, "Xiling, if I were to enter the dragon spring to cultivate and absorb the dragon spring essence, would it affect the dragon spring?" How could Xiling not know what Longao meant? He said, "If you don't have the dragon jade, it will definitely affect you. However, even if you don't absorb the dragon spring essence, I believe it will slowly disappear with time." "I see." Longao thought for a moment and said, "If I can't leave the Dragon Clan in the remaining 5 days, it will be useless even if I successfully bring the Dragon Spring back. Therefore, I will try my best to leave the Dragon Clan and rush to the Dragon Valley as soon as possible." According to Xiling, the Dragon Spring couldn't leave the surface for more than half a month. In other words, if he couldn't bring the Dragon Spring back successfully within 5 days, then his life-risking trip to the Dragon Clan would be a failure. Of course, Longao wouldn't let such a thing happen. Hearing that Longao wanted to leave the Dragon Clan with all his might, Xiling and Bai Ling's expressions were also quite unsightly. Bai Ling said, "Big brother Long, with my and my sister's strength, we can only help you resist the Supreme Divine Way martial artists. As for the Nirvana martial artists, the two of us can't do anything." Xiling glared at her fiercely because according to their previous agreement, they wouldn't help Longao from now on. However, since Bai Ling had said so, Xiling couldn't refuse. Okay. It was a blessing in disguise to be able to help deal with the Supreme Divine Stage warriors. As for the Nirvana Realm warriors, Longao roughly calculated that there were no more than 30 of them in the Long family and the Dragon Clan. As long as he was careful, he should be able to avoid them. Longao roughly calculated the time. He had to leave the Dragon Clan at this time tomorrow. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to return to the Dragon Valley in time. Thinking of this, Longao didn't continue to hesitate. He immediately got up and flew towards the exit of the Dragon Clan. Jojo continent. Unknowingly, 10 days had passed since Longhang entered the Jojo continent. In the end, he still hadn't succeeded in finding the whereabouts of the Dragon Sect and Longao. At this moment, Longhang was furious and depressed to the extreme. Longhang and the other 4 didn't relax at all. This was because if they couldn't successfully kill Longao in the Jojo continent, it would be difficult for them to return to the clan. With the death of Longbo and thousands of people, everyone knew that Long Di Tian, the patriarch of the Long family, was completely furious. Great Elder, a letter from the clan. After receiving the letter, Longhang seemed to be a little curious. He didn't know what the letter meant at this time. Just as he opened it and casually glanced at it, Longhang's face changed greatly. He had an expression of disbelief. "Great Elder, what's wrong with the clan?" Longhang slowed down and said helplessly, "Longao is the most arrogant person I've ever seen in my life. We're looking for him everywhere, but we didn't expect that Longao had already left the Jojo continent and entered the Dragon Clan." Hearing the Great Elder's words, the 4 of them were shocked. Was Longao not afraid of death? Provoking the Dragon Clan like this was completely not putting the Dragon Clan and the Long family in his eyes. If such a Long family could endure it, then the Long family would be disgraced. According to the news from the Patriarch, Longao is currently trapped in the Dragon Clan. He wants us to return to the clan immediately and kill Longao together. The 4 of them sighed. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen such an arrogant person. Longao was simply arrogant to the extreme. "Pack up, we'll get up immediately. Longao has successfully taken away the Dragon Spring. According to the time, 5 days, there are still 5 days. If Longao is unable to return to the Jojo continent smoothly, I believe that the Dragon Spring will be useless. Great Elder, could it be that Longao is trying to create a diversion by doing this?" "Impossible. No matter what, we have already obtained Longao's whereabouts, so we must hurry back to the clan. This time, no matter what, we must kill Longao. We must not let him leave the Dragon Clan." Chapter 1387. The Dragon Clan. Now that the Dragon Clan had been sealed off, the experts of the Dragon Clan and the Long family had all come out with the sole purpose of killing Longao. If word of this got out, no one would believe it. The Long family was one of the 10 great powers. The Dragon Clan was one of the 3 supreme clans among the spirit beasts. If the Dragon Clan and the Long family joined forces, no one would dare to provoke them even if they could not be number 1. It was a joke in itself that the Dragon Clan and the Long family experts had all come out for a mere supreme Dao martial artist. At the entrance of the Dragon Clan, Longao looked from afar and saw that the entrance was full of experts. Among them, there were no less than 3 Nirvana martial artists. What kind of concept was this? It seemed that the Dragon Clan and the Long family would not let him go this time. He sneered in his heart. Longao did not use teleportation because it was too far away from the entrance. It was almost impossible to teleport away from the Dragon Clan. What should he do? After thinking about it, Longao was finally prepared to break in because other than this method, he really couldn't think of a second way to leave the Dragon Clan smoothly. Longao, let me give you a piece of advice. It's best not to force your way in. Why? Upon hearing Xiling's words, Longao was very curious because he knew very well that Xiling would not say this for no reason. Could there be something fishy about this? Longao, I believe that you've seen that there are 4 Nirvana martial artists at the entrance alone. This does not include the Nirvana martial artists who are hiding in the dark. After thinking about it, Xiling continued, if you choose to force your way in, you don't even know if you'll be able to survive, let alone leave the Dragon Clan. I see. Longao really did not sense the Nirvana martial artists hiding in the dark. If it were not for Xiling's reminder, the consequences would be unimaginable if he chose to force his way in. Longao did not doubt Xiling's words. Longao, that's not all. This time, the Long family and the Dragon Clan have even activated the Dragon Clan's taboo in order to deal with you. Once you're trapped in the taboo, even if my sister and I work together, along with Long Fu, we won't be able to help you break the taboo. Hearing this, Longao was shocked. The taboo of the Dragon Clan? What was that? Longao had never heard of the dragon's taboo before, but seeing how serious Xiling was, it seemed that the dragon's taboo was not something ordinary. He seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. Violet Spirit glanced at the surrounding environment and leisurely said, Longao, back then, Long Tien and the primordial divine dragon borrowed the power of heaven and earth to set up a restriction in the Dragon Clan. Longao did not say anything and just listened quietly. In the beginning, no one took the Dragon Clan's taboo seriously. However, 10,000 years ago, the Long family and the Myriad Beasts sect were at odds. The Myriad Beasts sect's patriarch personally took action and prepared to destroy the Dragon Clan and the Long family. Longao still did not say a word. This was because Longao really did not know about this part of history. He only knew that the Dragon Clan and the WN Shou sect didn't get along. The biggest reason was that the WN Shou sect was known as the Spirit Beast Sovereign. If they wanted to destroy the Dragon Clan, the WN Shou sect would become the true leader of the 10 great factions. In that battle, Long Tien and the primordial divine dragon used the taboo to defeat the Myriad Beasts patriarch. At this point, Xiling did not continue, but the meaning in his words was very clear. Longao also understood. Long Tien and the primordial divine dragon could use the taboo to defeat the Myriad Beasts patriarch. One could imagine how powerful the Dragon Clan's taboo was. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid of it. According to what Xiling said, would he have to stay in the Dragon Clan for the rest of his life? He was very unwilling. Brother Long, wait a moment. Sister and I are thinking of a way for you. He nodded. Since things had already come to this point, Longao did not act rashly. He calmly thought of a way to see if he could avoid the taboo and leave the Dragon Clan. At the entrance, Long Di Tien did not cultivate with the patriarch and was already in a bad mood. This time, Longao barged into the Dragon Clan and gave Long Di Tien a chance to vent. In order to successfully kill Longao, the man and the dragon did not hesitate to use the Dragon Clan's taboo. Brother, if Longao continues to hide in the Dragon Clan, it will be very difficult for us to find him in a short period of time. The 9 Heavens divine dragon was very depressed. To deal with a small divine path warrior, they had to mobilize all the Nirvana realm warriors and use the taboo. If this matter were to spread, whether it was the Dragon Clan or the Long family, they would be laughed to death by others. Within 5 days, Longao will definitely appear. Long Di Tien's face was filled with confidence. Although I don't know what Longao wants to do with the Dragon Spring this time, you and I both know in our hearts that the Dragon Spring cannot leave the Dragon Spring Valley for more than half a month. Longao took such a huge risk to enter the Dragon Clan to snatch the Dragon Spring, and there are only 5 days left. I don't believe that he will give up on the Dragon Spring. Long Di-Tien knew that if that was the case, wouldn't Longao be taking off his pants to fart? Big brother, even so, I'm just worried that Longao snatching the Dragon Spring is just a pretense. How should we deal with it? How could Long Di-Tien not know what the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon was worried about? He thought about it. Long Di-Tien looked at the people around him and said, there are a total of 2 entrances in the Dragon Clan, and the other entrance is almost impossible to leave. This is the only possibility. Even if Longao snatching the Dragon Spring is just a pretense, I can still be sure that Longao will definitely appear. However, we will split into 2 groups, leaving 6 people behind, and the rest of us will scatter in all directions. I want to see where Longao can hide. Long Di-Tien had already decided, and the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon did not say anything else. 1 man and 1 dragon scattered in all directions, leaving behind 6 Nirvana Realm warriors to guard the entrance. The current Dragon Clan had already activated the taboo. As long as Longao appeared, 1 man and 1 dragon were completely confident that they could successfully kill Longao. This was the power of the taboo. The Dragon Clan's taboo, not to mention a mere Heavenly God Realm warrior, even a Nirvana Realm warrior would not be able to contend against it. This was also why the Dragon Clan was unwilling to give up on this place. Furthermore, the Dragon Clan's taboo was also Long Tien and the Primordial Divine Dragon's final trump card. If it was any other matter or dealing with other people, Long Di-Tien would never dare to casually use the Dragon Clan's taboo. However, against Longao, Long Di-Tien still did not have complete confidence. Otherwise, he would not have taken out the Dragon Clan's final trump card, which was also the so-called Dragon Clan's taboo. Now that Long Tien and the Primordial Divine Dragon were not around, and had already gone into seclusion, Long Di-Tien and the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon were in charge. It was precisely because of this that 1 man and 1 dragon took the initiative to use the Dragon Clan's taboo in order to successfully kill Longao. If Longao still managed to escape like this, then the Dragon Clan and the Long family could completely commit suicide. Chapter 1388. Longao remained hidden as he watched everyone leave. He didn't act recklessly. At the entrance, there were 6 Nirvana Realm cultivators and the Dragon Race's taboo. Trying to force his way in was simply a fantasy. Within the Dragon Seal space. Master, according to what I know, the Dragon Race has 2 entrances. The other exit is almost impossible to leave. Why is that? Longao had entered the Dragon Seal space to obtain information about the Dragon Race from Long Fu. Long Fu had followed Long Tien before, so he believed that Long Fu was familiar with the Dragon Race. Back then, Long Tien and the Primordial Divine Dragon found this place, but they also found another place. They entered it and experienced life and death before leaving the Dragon Race. Experienced life and death. These 4 simple words were more than enough. Longao was very clear that Long Tien and the Primordial Divine Dragon had stood at the peak of the martial sky continent 10,000 years ago. Unless it was the godly mathematician or the heavenly Tao, Long Tien and the Primordial Divine Dragon were the strongest. With their strength, they had experienced life and death before leaving. It was easy to imagine what the other exit was like. He chose to give up. Longao didn't choose to take the risk. Rather than choosing the other exit, it was better to force his way in. At least he would be able to see the danger. Master, the Dragon Race's taboo is formed by borrowing the power of heaven and earth. Unless a peak expert descends, no one can resist the Dragon Race's taboo. He nodded. Long Fu already knew this point. Longao already knew. Even the Myriad Beast sect's Myriad Beast ancestor couldn't resist the Dragon Race's taboo. One could imagine how terrifying it was. Long Fu, how can I avoid the Dragon Race's taboo and leave the Dragon Race? The most important thing now was to find a way to leave the Dragon Race. Longao hadn't expected the Dragon Race's greatest killing move to be the so-called taboo. Master, do you know about the taboo energy? He shook his head. Could it be that the taboo energy wasn't formed by heaven and earth? Longao was no fool. He knew very well that since Long Fu had said so, the taboo power was not as simple as he had imagined. As expected. Master, 95% of the reason why Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon were able to successfully set up the forbidden power was because of the oracle's help. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to do it alone. Clairvoyant. Hearing Long Fu's words, Long Ao was shocked. He had never imagined that the reason Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon had set up the forbidden energy was because of the god diviner. Before Long Ao could speak, Long Fu continued, forbidden power, a power unique to those who have reached the peak of martial arts. Of course, Long Ao was no stranger to experts at the peak of martial arts. However, Long Ao was not very clear about the power possessed by the experts at the peak of the martial way. According to what Long Fu said, it seemed that the power possessed by the experts at the peak of the martial way should be the so-called forbidden power. If that was the case, Long Ao could imagine that without the help of the oracle, Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon would not have been able to set up the forbidden power. No wonder. Long Ao finally understood why Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon were able to borrow the power of the taboo energy to defeat the beast ancestor. How could a Nirvana realm expert resist the taboo energy possessed by an expert at the peak of martial arts? At this moment, Long Ao's expression became more and more solemn. Although Long Ao was very confident in his own strength, he knew his own limits. Long Ao would not rashly resist the taboo energy possessed by experts at the peak of martial arts. Long Fu, what should I do now? Long Ao was very curious. He did not know why the oracle would help Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon. If that was the case, back then, why did the oracle not help when the man and dragon fought against Tian Dao? As if he could guess Long Ao's thoughts, Long Fu said, Master, even I can't resist the taboo energy. If Miss Xiling and Miss Bai Ling can recover to their peak, I believe they can easily destroy the taboo energy. It was as good as not saying anything. Long Ao certainly knew what Xiling and Bai Ling's strength meant. According to Long Ao's guess, Xiling and Bai Ling's peak strength was probably above Tian Dao. Everything was in vain. If Xiling and Bai Ling could recover to their peak strength, not to mention the taboo energy of the Destruction Dragon tribe, even if Tian Dao personally descended, he would not have the slightest fear. However, the current situation. Whether it was Xiling or Bai Ling, they were seriously injured. It was easier said than done for them to recover to their peak strength. Long Fu, I just want to know what I should do now. Long Fu's expression was very serious. He was very clear that if there was enough time, with his master's strength, he would definitely be able to leave successfully. However, his master only had 5 days left. It seemed very difficult to leave the dragon tribe in just 2 days. Only death awaited him if he tried to break through the taboo energy. Long Fu did not dare to casually raise his opinion because the taboo energy was too strong. If he were to relax a little, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Regarding the misgivings in Long Fu's heart, how could Long Ao not know? He said helplessly, Long Fu, if you have any ideas, just tell me. No matter what happens, I won't blame you. Long Fu thought for a while and immediately said, if that's the case, Master, I have a way to leave the dragon tribe successfully. However, it's very dangerous. Speak. Since things had come to this point, no matter what kind of danger he would encounter, Long Ao knew that he had to think of a way to leave the dragon tribe as quickly as possible. This was because Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon had made up their minds to deal with him and had even used the taboo energy. Long Ao knew that the longer he stayed in the dragon tribe, the greater the danger he would be in. Master, back then, the divine mathematician helped Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon to condense the taboo energy. Although it's very powerful, Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon are still not at the peak of the martial way. Therefore, whether it's Long Tian, the primordial divine dragon, or Long Di Tian and the 9 firmaments divine dragon, they can only use the taboo energy once a day. Once. Even if it was just once, Long Ao did not dare to rashly go against them. If he was unlucky and was hit by the taboo energy, it would not be a narrow escape, but a certain death. Long Fu, what do you mean? Master, although I don't know what your clone is like, in my opinion, if you are willing to use your clone to divert everyone's attention, I believe that you will be able to leave the dragon tribe smoothly. This is the only way. Chapter 1389. Towards Long Fu's meaning, Longao already understood. Long Fu's meaning was very simple. It was to make him sacrifice his reincarnation avatar and successfully leave the dragon clan. Longao did not say anything as he quietly pondered by himself. Sacrifice his reincarnation avatar. Continue to stay in the dragon clan. How should he choose between the two paths? Longao was not sure if his reincarnation avatar could withstand the taboo power. No matter what, the taboo power was a power unique to experts at the peak of the martial Dao. Even the 10,000 beasts ancestor could not contend against it. If the reincarnation avatar was unable to withstand the taboo power, wouldn't he have to sacrifice his reincarnation avatar for nothing? Longao was extremely reluctant in his heart. How should he choose? Dusk gradually descended. At this moment, the dragon clan was very noisy, like boiling water, and the sound of searching for Longao could be heard everywhere. The dragon clan was very big, and it was not possible to find a single trace of a person in a short period of time. The heavenly divine dragon and Long Di Tien were extremely depressed. Longao had provoked them time and time again, and if they were unable to kill Longao this time, the dragon clan and the Long family would be completely humiliated. Big brother, where is Longao hiding? The heavenly divine dragon was very depressed. The dragon clan was his territory, and under normal circumstances, if Longao hid in the dragon clan, it was impossible for him not to find Longao. But in the end, after an entire 11 days, he still could not find any traces of Longao. If he did not personally experience it, the heavenly divine dragon would definitely not be willing to believe it. Where was Longao hiding? Long Di Tien was 10,000 times angrier than anyone else. After all, Longao had killed his son, and the enmity of killing his son was irreconcilable. If not for the enmity of killing his son, Long Di Tien would not have used the dragon clan's taboo power. The taboo power was the greatest trump card of the dragon clan and the Long family. No matter where Longao is hiding, we must find him. Long Di Tien and the heavenly divine dragon had been searching for Longao the entire time, but they never thought that the Longao would already appear at the exit of the dragon clan. At the exit of the dragon clan, Long Fu had thought about Longao's suggestion for a long time. Thinking back and forth, Longao finally decided to give Long Fu's suggestion a try. At this point, it would be very difficult for him to leave the dragon clan without using his reincarnation avatar. If there was enough time, Longao would definitely not choose this method. However, the problem now was that he only had less than 5 days left. If he could not leave the dragon clan by this time tomorrow, the dragon spring would be destroyed. In other words, he had entered the dragon clan for nothing. Not only could Longquan help Xiling successfully set up the Sword Realm, but it could also help everyone in the family increase their cultivation speed. The next moment, the reincarnation avatar suddenly appeared and flew towards the exit. Longao. Looking at the figure that suddenly appeared, everyone was shocked. Their target this time was Longao. After searching bitterly for 11 days, Longao's sudden appearance really gave everyone a fright. As the saying goes, a person's reputation is like a tree's shadow. Longao's strength might not be much, but he dared to cause trouble in the Martial Artists Alliance and did not put the Martial Artists Alliance and the Long family in his eyes. He was a complete madman. Under normal circumstances, Longao should be hiding when the Dragon Clan and the Long family joined forces to hunt down Longao. However, not only did Longao not hide, he even prepared to barge in. What kind of concept was this? Could it be that Longao had nothing to fear? The more Longao acted like this, the more unsure everyone was. As soon as the reincarnation avatar appeared, there were countless people surrounding it. Long Di Tien and the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon were not around. If Longao escaped at this time, how would they explain it to the 2 clan leaders? Of course, The reincarnation avatar was no match for 6 Nirvana realm martial artists. Regarding this point, Longao was very clear in his heart. The reincarnation avatar only exchanged 3 moves with the crowd. It seemed like he was no match for them. He immediately turned around and shot towards the left. Chase after him. The target had already appeared. The 6 Nirvana realm martial artists led everyone and chased after the reincarnation avatar crazily. Under such circumstances, it was useless for them to continue guarding the exit. In the end, the 6 Nirvana realm martial artists still did not put Longao in their eyes. From the beginning, they thought that if the 6 of them joined forces, they would definitely be able to kill Longao. They never thought that Longao would return to the exit. Seeing the reincarnation avatar and the others gradually disappear into the distance, Longao was immediately overjoyed. As long as he did not use the forbidden power, Longao was completely confident that he could summon the reincarnation avatar in an instant. Not to mention the 6 of them, even if Long Di-Tien and the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon were here, they would not be able to stop him. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Of course, Longao would not miss this opportunity. With a stride, his entire figure had already rushed out and used spatial teleportation. In a few seconds, Longao's figure had already appeared at the exit. With a few hundred meters of distance, as long as he teleported or continued to stride forward, he believed that Longao would be able to smoothly leave the Dragon Clan. At this moment, at the critical moment, 4 people suddenly shot in from the exit. They were none other than Long Hang and the other 4 who had rushed over from the 9 provinces continent. The 5 people who had just stepped into the Dragon Clan suddenly saw Longao who was preparing to leave. Both parties were stunned. Whether it was Long Hang and the other 4 or Longao, it seemed that they did not expect to meet at this place at this time. When enemies met, their eyes would turn red. Without any suspense, Long Hang and the other 4 immediately attacked Longao. Not only that, Long Hang directly used his divine weapon. Under such circumstances, not only could Longao not use spatial teleportation, he could also not enter the Dragon Seal space. Longao was forced to retreat step by step. Not to mention the 5 of them joining forces, even if it was a one-on-one situation, it would be difficult for him to deal with them. As for Bai Ling and Zai Ling, he could not casually appear. Once they were discovered by Long Hang, not only would he not be able to escape, even Zai Ling and Bai Ling's identities would be exposed. At that time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Catcher. Longao was fiercely hit by Long Hang, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Even so, Longao still forcibly withstood it. Only by relying on his speed could he barely withstand it. If it was an ordinary heavenly god, he would have been killed by Long Hang and the other 4. How could he withstand so many attacks? Longao, this time you're dead for sure. Unknowingly, a few minutes had already passed in the battle between the 2 sides. The battle between the 2 sides was too loud. Long Di-Tien and the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon, who were looking for Longao, had already rushed over. Seeing Longao being surrounded by Long Hang and the other 4, Long Di-Tien and the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon were pleasantly surprised. 1 man and 1 dragon thought about it and felt a lingering fear. Because if Long Hang did not rush back in time, Longao would have successfully escaped, although they did not know what had happened. Chapter 1390. In the Great Battle. Longao was paying attention to all directions. How could he not know that Long Di-Tien and the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon had arrived? The more he fought, the more serious he became. Was he really going to die here this time? He was unwilling. He roared angrily. Next. Longao immediately summoned his Samsara clone back. 2 identical Longao fought against Long Hang and the other 4. As for Long Di-Tien, the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon and the others, they all stood around and watched the battle, no one intervening. The surroundings of the battle were completely surrounded. The more it was like this, the more serious Longao became. Let's not talk about whether or not he could defeat Long Hang and the other 4. Even if he could defeat the 5 of them, there were still countless experts waiting around. He couldn't possibly destroy the entire dragon clan and the Long family. Silent God Bow. The reincarnation clone pulled the silent death divine bow and used all the strength in his body to cover for Longao. Blood pool. 9 needles sealing God. Longao knew very well that if he wanted to leave the dragon clan smoothly, he could only use the blood pool or the 9 needles sealing God. Other than that, there was no other way. Longao obviously knew the consequences of forcefully using the blood pool and the 9 needles sealing God. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would never use it casually. However, in this situation, it was a matter of life and death. One side was death, and the other side was the risk of being devoured. What should he choose? The Samsara clone used the power of the silent God bow to forcefully avoid the 5 of them. After thinking about it, Longao finally chose to give up on using the blood pool and the 9 needles sealing God. This was because he did not have the slightest confidence in the consequences of forcefully using the 9 needles sealing God and the blood pool. He couldn't die. Even if it wasn't for himself, he had to do it for his family and his loved ones. Spacetime wheel. With no other choice, Longao prepared to use the spacetime wheel to forcefully break through space and leave. In other words, if he forcefully used the spacetime wheel, it was still unknown if he could successfully reach the Dragon Valley. The reason was simple. With Longao's strength, he was still unable to use the spacetime wheel to retract and release it freely. Longao, who had just released his aura and was about to use the spacetime wheel to leave, suddenly had a change of expression. This was because he had clearly sensed that the aura he had released, even if it was the aura of the spacetime wheel, had been forcefully repelled by an invisible barrier. Could this be the so-called taboo power? What a terrifying taboo power! No wonder taboo power was unique to those at the pinnacle of martial arts. Big brother, it's fortunate that we've already activated our taboo power. Otherwise, Longao would have really escaped. He nodded. Long Di Tien agreed and said, with our strength, we can at most maintain the taboo power for a day. If we forcefully attack, we only have one chance. Hearing Long Di Tien's words, the 9 heavens divine dragon laughed. His face was filled with disdain and contempt, but he was even more confident. It was in the bag. Big brother, there are so many of us here. If we still let Longao escape, then our dragon clan and the Long family won't be able to survive in the future. Looking at the battle in front of him, although Long Di Tien did not say anything, he was still not completely confident. If it were anyone else, Long Di Tien would not be worried at all. However, Longao was a person with a lot of variables. He did not know why, but he felt that Longao still had some tricks up his sleeve. Otherwise, Longao would not be so reckless. Could it be that Longao really did not care about his own life for Long Quan? Was that possible? Longao, who was in the middle of the battle, joined forces with his reincarnation doppelganger and fought with all his might. This was because he was facing Long Hang and the other 4. If he let his guard down, he would be cut into pieces by them. He could not afford to be distracted. Longao knew very well that this could not continue. As the battle continued to escalate, Long Hang's face became uglier and uglier. This was because with the strength of the 5 of them, they were unable to kill Longao within 30 moves. This was something unbelievable. Big brother, should we take action? Seeing that Long Hang and the other 4 were still unable to kill Longao, the heavenly dragon god could not sit still and wanted to take action immediately. This was because Longao took Long Quan without permission. This was a provocation to the dragon clan. If Longao did not die, where would the dragon clan's face go? He waved his hand. Long Di Tien looked at the battle in front of him coldly and said, according to Longao's previous actions, I can almost say that Longao definitely has a trump card. If we all take action and Longao escapes, the gains will not make up for the losses. The heavenly dragon god did not think much of it. This was because in his opinion, how could Longao escape when things had already come to this point? Unless they purposely went easy on him. But was that possible? Sister, I want to go out. Inside the dragon seal space. Bai Ling's face was filled with worry because Longao was surrounded by countless experts. The outcome was obvious. However, Xiling pulled Bai Ling back. His meaning was very clear. He wanted to stop Bai Ling and did not allow Bai Ling to go out. Bai Ling, calm down first. If we can kill Nirvana Realm warriors, we can go out at any time. But now, with our strength, we can only kill warriors below the Emperor God Realm. Tell me, even if we go out, will we be of any help to Longao? Without waiting for Bai Ling to continue, Xiling continued, if you insist on going out, I will not stop you. But I have to remind you that if you force your way out, not only will you not be of any help to Longao, you will even become a burden to him. Xiling did not continue to stop her. Bai Ling calmed down because Bai Ling realized that her sister was right. With her strength, it was impossible for her to kill a Nirvana Realm warrior. If she went out like this, not only would she not be of any help to Brother Long, she might even become a burden to him. Sister, with Brother Long's current situation, it will be very difficult for him to escape. Think of a way to help him. Bai Ling was very anxious, because in this situation, every minute they delayed, Brother Long would be in more danger. Xiling nodded. How could he not know? He said, Bai Ling, don't worry. Although Longao's strength is not enough to fight against Long Hang and the others, his divine ability is very powerful. If you want to leave the Dragon Clan, there is only one way. What is it? Hearing that her sister had a way to save Brother Long, Bai Ling was overjoyed. She could not wait to ask. Bai Ling, let's use our sword essence and pour it into Longao's body. Although it can only be used once, it will be enough to make Longao leave the Dragon Clan. However, our injuries will become more serious. If that happens, it will take us a long time to recover our peak strength. Sister, I'm willing, Bai Ling agreed without even thinking or hesitating. Xiling seemed to have guessed that his sister would say this. He sighed deeply and felt extremely helpless. Since things had already come to this, there was no point in saying anything more. He could only do his best to help Longao. Chapter 1391. The battle continued. It continued to escalate. Even though Longao had the help of the reincarnation clone, he was still forced to retreat by Long Hang and the other four. Longao knew that if this continued, the chances of him dying would be very high. Brother Long, my sister and I will help you with all our strength. Remember, you only have the power of one sword. You must leave the Dragon Clan. At this moment of life and death, Longao couldn't care about anything else. In the next second, Longao felt that there were suddenly two extremely terrifying sword chi's in his body. Without any suspense, these two sword chi's were the purple spirit and white spirit sword chi's. He roared into the sky. His roar spread across the entire world. Seeing Longao's crazy look, everyone laughed. In everyone's opinion, Longao was dead for sure this time. But then, everyone's face changed. Brother. Before the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon could finish, Long Di Tien said, everyone, back off. Not daring to be careless, everyone retreated quickly. This was because Longao's body suddenly released a terrifying aura. It was terrifying. What the hell happened? Long Hang and the other four who were in the middle of the battle also didn't know what happened. Why did Longao, who was struggling on the verge of death, become so strong for no reason? Long Hang and the other four didn't have the slightest intention of stopping because the battle had already reached this stage. The five of them were very clear in their hearts that they had to kill Longao. Otherwise, if the others killed Longao, wouldn't the five of them be futile? Thinking of this, the five of them attacked faster and faster, especially Long Hang. His speed was extremely fast. The reincarnation clone suddenly disappeared. He replaced the sword with his finger. Longao's body released a terrifying sword chi, causing Long Hang and the other four to be unable to get close to him. The five of them looked gloomy because at this moment, no one knew what was going on. Brother, what happened to Longao? Long Di Tien's expression turned extremely gloomy as he looked at the young man standing proudly in front of him. His voice was extremely cold as Long Di Tien said coldly, Longao, if my guess is correct, there should be a divine soul in Longao's body, and its strength should not be weaker than the old ancestors. My grass. Long Di Tian's words scared the nine firmament's divine dragon. Because his strength was not weaker than the great ancestor, the divine dragon of the nine heavens knew what it meant. If that was the case, he finally knew why Longao was able to counterattack every time. A divine soul at the peak of the Nirvana realm could be lent to Longao. If that was the case, then all the dark clouds had already been cleared. Longao was only a puny heavenly god martial artist. It was impossible for him to possess such a powerful sword force. Could it be that the Nirvana divine soul hiding in Longao's body was a senior from the sword sect? As if he could guess what the divine dragon of the nine heavens was thinking, Long Di Tian sneered. Although I am still unable to confirm the identity of the Nirvana divine soul in Longao's body, the other party's identity should not be simple. If you and I can obtain this divine soul, I believe it will be of great help to our cultivation. Hearing this, the divine dragon of the nine heavens was also filled with greed. Brother, what should we do now? Retreat in order to advance. Retreat in order to advance. The divine dragon of the nine heavens was puzzled. He did not know what Long Di Tian meant by retreat in order to advance. He laughed. Long Di Tian never expected that there would be a divine soul at the peak of the Nirvana realm in Longao's body. To him, this was undoubtedly the greatest treasure. If he could devour it, Long Di Tian had full confidence that his cultivation would be able to advance. The more it was so, the more careful Long Di Tian was. He could not let Longao leave. If I'm not wrong, the current Longao should be borrowing the power of the divine soul. Nodding his head, the divine dragon of the nine heavens agreed. If we were to fight head-on now, even if we could kill Longao and obtain the Nirvana divine soul, I believe we would suffer heavy losses. Brother, let's use the taboo power. The divine dragon of the nine heavens was full of confidence. Once the taboo power was activated, not to mention Longao, even a Nirvana realm martial artist would not be able to resist the taboo power. The taboo power was a power unique to the pinnacle of the martial Tao. The taboo power was also the most powerful power in the world. The taboo power could destroy the world. It was a superpower that could destroy everything. However, Long Di Tian shook his head and said, once we use the taboo power, not only Longao, but even the Nirvana divine soul in Longao's body will also disappear. Long Di Tian was very clear that the taboo power was too powerful. He had to obtain the Nirvana divine soul in Longao's body. Therefore, he could not use the taboo power until the last moment. Brother, what if Longao escapes? A divine soul will always be a divine soul. At this point, the divine dragon of the nine heavens did not continue speaking. If the divine dragon of the nine heavens and Long Di Tian knew that the divine soul in Longao's body was not only a Nirvana divine soul, but also a divine soul that was at the pinnacle of the martial way, who knew what would happen to the man and the dragon. If that was really the case, the man and the dragon would definitely get it no matter how much they had to pay. Being surrounded by everyone, Longao did not continue attacking. On the other hand, Longao stood in his original position. He was dressed in black, and his blood-red hair fluttered in the wind. At this moment, Longao looked extremely cold, as if the god of death had descended. One sword. According to what Bai Ling said, the two of them could only help him unleash one sword. In other words, this sword would not be able to leave the Dragon Clan. The result was obvious. This sword must succeed. Longao was very careful. There was only one chance, and he would not choose to give up so easily. Longao was very clear about the strength of Xiling and Bai Ling. With the two of them helping him, he believed that this sword would be a sword that even ghosts and gods would be afraid of. If he could not leave even with this, it would mean that he was done for. Using his finger as a sword, Longao merged all the strength in his body into the two-sword chi, forming a brand new sword chi and gathering it into the god-slaying sword art. Not only that, to ensure that nothing would go wrong, Longao even combined the 5 elements heaven devouring art, the firmament devouring art, and the 9-cycle reincarnation art. No one knew how powerful this sword would be, not even Longao. Swoosh. Longao used his finger as a sword to release a sword chi. With a flash of light, It was like a meteor streaking across the sky. Before the crowd could figure out what was going on, the sword chi had already streaked across the sky and landed fiercely in front of them. No screams were issued. In just a few seconds, at least thousands of people had fallen. Among them, there were even supreme Tao warriors. Even Nirvana realm warriors were injured by the sword chi. Seeing this situation, everyone was stunned. Each and every one of them looked as if they had seen a ghost. They were stupefied on the spot. Chapter 1392. This sword strike. It shocked the heavens and earth. This sword strike. Even Long Di Tien and the Nine Firmaments divine dragon did not dare to fight him head-on. At the entrance of the dragon clan, wherever the sword chi passed, it would be forcefully cut open, as if there was an earthquake. Looking at the scene that had just happened, not to mention the others, just Long Di Tien and the heavenly divine dragon were a little dumbfounded. The man and the dragon had already thought that Longao's strength was definitely not simple with the help of his divine soul. But even so, the man and the dragon never thought that Longao's strength would be so strong with the help of his divine soul. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not believe it even if they were beaten to death. Was this for real? Big brother. Hearing the heavenly divine dragon's reminder, Long Di Tien shuddered. Longao, don't even think about escaping. After releasing a shocking sword strike, Longao obviously would not miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Taking advantage of the moment when everyone was in a daze, he disappeared from his original spot. One step away. With just one step, Longao would be able to leave the Dragon Clan smoothly. If that was the case, Longao would once again become famous, provoking the Dragon Clan and forcefully taking away Long Quan. Not only that, with the Long family and all the experts of the Dragon Clan out, if Longao was still able to leave successfully, such a feat would probably be unprecedented. Since things had already reached this point, Longao naturally thought that he could leave the Dragon Clan smoothly. But in the end, forbidden power. In the end, Long Di Tien did not care about the Nirvana divine soul in Longao's body and directly activated the forbidden power. According to Long Di Tien and the heavenly divine dragon's strength, the two of them could only activate the forbidden power once. In other words, they only had one chance. If they could not hit him, then Longao would successfully leave the Dragon Clan. The man and the dragon were extremely confident. The forbidden power was unparalleled. If that was the case, Longao could still leave the Dragon Clan successfully, then the Long family and the Dragon Clan could all commit suicide. Just as Longao was about to leave, he suddenly found himself enveloped by a terrifying power. Enveloped by this terrifying power, Longao felt that he had no strength to resist at all. There was no need to guess. Longao had already determined that the power that enveloped him was the final trump card of the Dragon Clan and the Long family. It was also the so-called forbidden power, a power unique to powerhouses at the peak of martial arts. There was no chance at all. Longao's heart was filled with endless unwillingness. Longao knew his limits because he knew very well that it was utterly impossible for him to resist the taboo energy with his current strength. This was just like how a Hutian warrior was unable to contend against a Xiantian warrior. Bai Ling, no. Looking at Bai Ling, who had suddenly appeared in front of him, Longao let out a heart-wrenching roar that reverberated throughout the heavens and earth. At this moment, of course, Longao knew what Bai Ling wanted to do by suddenly appearing. If Bai Ling was at her peak, not to mention resisting the taboo energy, she could even destroy the taboo energy with ease. But in the current situation, Bai Ling was seriously injured. Not to mention the peak of martial arts, Bai Ling could not even contend against a Nirvana warrior, let alone the taboo energy. It could be said that Bai Ling resisted the taboo energy and there was only one outcome, which was to be destroyed by the taboo energy. Of course, Longao did not want to see this happen. He would rather die than see anything happen to Bai Ling. Not only Longao, but even Xiling was a little dumbfounded. However, the taboo energy was too terrifying. In the end, Xiling forced herself to endure. Because Xiling knew very well that even if she went out now, not only would it be useless, but she would also be destroyed by the taboo energy. His sister was too silly. Big brother, divine soul. Without needing Heavenly Dragon God to say anything, Long Di-Tien had already seen it. Although it was a pity, things had already come to this point. He had to keep Longao here. Otherwise, the Dragon tribe and the Long family would be embarrassed. Everyone who was watching from the sidelines was extremely excited. The taboo energy was the strongest energy in the legends. Everyone knew that the taboo energy was the trump card of the Dragon tribe and the Long family. Once the taboo energy was released, who could resist it? Longao was dead for sure this time. As for the lady in white who suddenly appeared, everyone already knew what was going on. Because of this, everyone knew that Longao was able to counterattack time and time again because of this divine soul. Without the divine soul, Longao was nothing. Everything was over. With the taboo energy activated, Longao was definitely going to die. For some reason, everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Longao and the lady in white being enveloped by the taboo energy. Big brother Long, take care in the future. Bai Ling will leave first. No. It was heart-wrenching. Longao cried out in pain. His entire body was trembling intensely because of the pain. However, at this moment, Longao was enveloped by the taboo energy and could not move at all. He could only watch as Bai Ling sacrificed herself for him. With my body. Bai Ling began to chant something. Suddenly, her entire body emitted an intense white light. Between heaven and earth. The taboo energy was like a shining sun. It became brighter and brighter, stronger and stronger. Accompanied by the screams of countless people, the taboo energy began to attack Bai Ling crazily. The taboo energy was like an avalanche. No. Seeing Bai Ling being attacked by the taboo energy, Longao roared crazily. However, his body was still unable to move. He could only watch as Bai Ling was attacked by the taboo energy. Pain. A heart-wrenching pain. At this moment, Longao's eyes were red. He was like a mad lion. Feeling that his body could not move, the anger and hatred in his heart erupted like a volcano. He could only watch as Bai Ling in front of him was devoured by the taboo energy and even destroyed. Everyone heard Longao's heart-wrenching roar and looked at the crazy Longao. Everyone sneered. For so long, Longao had repeatedly provoked and counterattacked, causing the Long family and the Dragon clan to lose face. Now that Longao was killed, how could everyone not be agitated? In the Dragon seal space. Sister. Now that things had come to such a stage, even Purple Spirit did not know what she should say or do. In the ninth heaven. Bai Ling's body had been devoured. Next was Longao. Everyone was almost certain that Longao would undoubtedly die. No one could survive under the taboo energy. This was the power of the taboo energy. Bai Ling's kindness, Bai Ling's smile, and Bai Ling's innocence. Scenes flashed through Longao's mind. Thinking that Bai Ling had died because of him, Longao was overwhelmed with pain. Anger, endless anger. Gradually, the murderous aura on Longao's body became heavier and heavier. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.